Thank you, Frank. Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the SELECTMEN'S meeting for Tuesday, November 18th. We're here at a different location tonight at the Ahern School Auditorium. I'll read through the agenda. 7 p.m. citizens input, topics not reasonably anticipated by the chair 48 hours in advance of the meeting. 7:05 Selectmen's update. 7:15 a public hearing for Fusion 5, alleged violations, alteration of premise, improper storage of alcohol, etc. 7:20 Lakeview Pavilion, liquor license fee waiver. 7:35 public hearing, Ancient Mariner, alteration of premises. 7:50 MBTA, David Moeller, presentation regarding the proposed new passenger train service in Foxborough. 8:50 the Town Hall Working Group will have an update on the Town Hall project. And at 8:55, Bill Keegan will provide us with a town manager update. John, can you lead us in the pledge, please?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Okay, we'll start with citizens' input. Is there anyone who'd like to come forward? Dave, come on to the mic.
David Brown, 17 American Way. And I just wanted to make some comments. I watched the liquor hearings from last week, and I think you're all aware I do have a passion for the enforcement of our liquor regulations and whatnot. And I was disappointed to see, and I know it's not your doing, but apparently our latest town council is not going to allow input from the public at large, even though these are public hearings. And he gave some reason for it, and that's fine. I certainly have other ways to give my input, so you're going to get it tonight, I guess. I'm pleased to see that the board has taken a tougher stand on these violations, which now includes suspensions, which I think is the only way you're going to get any real action from the license holders. The other thing I just kind of caution you about, I think there's a lot of reliance placed on tip training, because they all have the tip training. I think that's only a starting point, and there's a lot more that these establishments can do. I know you're not in a position to impose it on them, but they can certainly do sophisticated monitoring of their employees as part of their performance. They probably can even conduct internal sting operations of their own. So the fact that they're doing the tips training, as I say, that's just the start. It's really minimal from my point of view. The other thing I ran into recently, because I know some establishments, they don't like the idea of carding everybody, and, and they feel it's kind of distasteful. I was in a Renaissance or a DoubleTree Inn up in Milford about a month ago, and I went into their bar area, and very prominently on one of the walls by itself was a sign, and the sign simply said, "Please don't be offended, we card everyone." Why not? Why not? Easy thing to do, something that any employee can point to if they get some resistance on carding. So there are lots of creative things, and I say this, and I know some of you know, some of you don't know, but I have background when I was in the insurance industry, working with underwriters, underwriting liquor liability insurance. So that's all I have. I'm fine with not being heard at the hearings, but you will be hearing from me.
Thank you.
Thanks, Dave. Okay, any other citizens for input? Okay, thank you. Okay, I'll just give a brief Selectmen's update. I wanted to start off by thanking the advisory committee, Bill Keegan, and the entire town hall team for the presentation they did last night. It really went over well, obviously. It was favorable, and very grateful for all the work that was put into that. All the presentations done by advisory committee were very well done. And again, also appreciated David and Jim's comments in making it a successful evening for us. As a continuation, we'll continue to work on the sign bylaw development as we move forward. Just wanted to mention that this coming Sunday, just before the game starts, there will be a flyover by some jet planes, I think F-15s or F-8? F-15s, yeah. So keep an ear open and an eye open for that. Tomorrow morning, there will be a meeting at Patriot Place regarding the local transportation. This meeting takes place at CBS Scene, and Bill, I think, can you provide us with more details on that?
Yes.
All right. And just wanted to make a special request. We are looking for a citizen volunteer to participate on our personnel wage bylaw. We're looking for someone with either a personnel background and or legal background who could be a member of that group. If you're interested, please call the town hall and we'll provide you with an application and give you some information on that group, okay? All right, so our first agenda item is the public hearing for Fusion 5. Janine, do you want to read that?
I'll read the legal news. Notice is hereby given that the Board of Selectmen will conduct a public hearing on Tuesday, November 18, 2014, at 7:15 p.m. in the Foxborough High School Media Center, 120 South Street, Foxborough, Mass., pursuant to its licensing authority in accordance with Massachusetts General Laws annotated, Chapter 138, Sections 23, 64, and 67, and all amendments thereto. The purpose of the hearing will be to review and discuss information concerning alleged violations of Chapter 138 that occurred at the Angus Corp. DBA Fusion 5, 105 Washington Street, Foxborough, Mass. Fulgani Janak Patel, manager. All interested parties are invited to attend.
So the attorney for Fusion 5 has requested that we continue the hearing until November 25th at 7:15 p.m. So we'll have the discussion at that time.
Do I have to make a motion for
Yeah, should we make a motion for that?
Yes.
Okay.
this? I move that the Board of Selectmen continue this hearing to November 25th, 2014, per request of the attorney for Fusion 5.
I'll second that motion.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. Okay. I have a timekeeper. I just want to make sure we don't get ahead on any of these hearings.
Okay. Oh, it's about 7:14.
Okay. All right. Do you want to do some action items?
The first action item is a renewal of a Hackney license for Kevin Michael Davis of Mansfield. It has been approved by Chief O'Leary, and it's for a renewal. It's for renewal. So I move that the Board of Selectmen approve the renewal of the Hackney license for Kevin M. Davis, expiring November 18th, 2016.
I'll second that.
All those in favor?
Aye. We have a few applications for change of hours. This is legislation passed recently that approved opening at 10 o'clock in the morning on Sundays. And in order to do this, you have to apply for change of hours. And we have 3 applications this evening for that. So this is the first one. I move that the Board of Selectmen approve the request for change of hours for Missa Enterprises doing business as the Country Store to open at 10 a.m. on Sundays.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye. The next one is a application for change of hours. And so I move that the Board of Selectmen approve the application for Trader Joe's Incorporated for a change of hours to open at 10 a.m. on Sundays.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye. The next item is a resignation from the Cultural Council. I move that the Board of Selectmen accept the resignation of Carolyn Godin from the Cultural Council effective October 29, 2014, and thank her for her past service.
I'll second that.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Thank you, Carolyn.
Continue.
So, yep, we can keep going.
The next is acceptance of a donation. I move that the Board of Selectmen approve the donation of $200 for the Foxborough Skate Park Fund from the John F. Kelly Memorial Scholarship Fund, care of Martha Slattery, and thank the Scholarship Fund for the donation.
I'll second that with the selectmen's gratitude.
All those in favor?
Aye. Next one is another donation. I move that the Board of Selectmen accept a donation of $100 to the Animal Control Office for the adoption of a dog by Charlene Bastian.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye. We have a public event application from the Foxborough Recreation Department, and Debbie Giordano of the Foxborough Recreation Department would like to speak to this.
Yeah, here you go. Stop. Hold on.
No.
Thank you. Debbie Giardino, 151 Main Street. The Foxborough Recreation Department has formed a new collaboration, proudly to say, with the J.C.'s. The J.C.'s and the Recreation Department are sponsoring what we're calling Light Up the Night. It's going to be a weekend event where we're going to welcome the holidays townwide. It starts on Friday, November 28th, with a showing of It's a Wonderful Life for families at the Orpheum Theater, followed by Saturday, the 29th, when the J.C.'s will be bringing out the creche and all of their decorations, and they ask that anybody wanting to help or wanting to participate, please join them up at the Common at 9:30 to noon. From 4 to 5 o'clock, we are all working together again with the library, another great collaboration. We're inviting children and their families to come to the library and make a decoration for the Christmas tree, which there's one pine tree left on the Common of great size. We started decorating that 3 years ago, we being the rec department. Tree Tech comes down and hangs the lights, and they do a great job. We're actually putting the lights up this Saturday, but they will not be turned on until 5 o'clock on Saturday. So Saturday, you join the J.C.'s in the morning, come back to the library at 4, and between 5 and 6, we will be both lighting the tree and the creche and the decorations around the creche. They light some trees. And also we'll be having some visitors from the North Pole who will arrive via fire truck, heralding back to the days of old, huh? You know, it's just, you call the North Pole and you ask if there's somebody willing to visit, and they pretty much always say yes. Right, and the fire truck is gonna deliver them. And the children who have made decorations will decorate the tree. We've made sure that they're not made of paper, and there'll be family decorations. I'd like to say, and Bill Keating and I had discussed this in Mary Beth, in a meeting between ourselves, the library, and the Historical Commission on how we can collaborate and do things for families on the Common. And the Recreation Department, in their mission statement, does have that we will offer community events that are for free. So there'll be hot chocolate, the visitors, the ornaments, there'll be music via loudspeakers, and this is just baby steps towards eventually having a whole, what we'd like to hopefully someday have as a Christmas stroll, where you'll see the downtown closed, all the merchants involved. So this is our baby step towards that. So it's 2 days of great family fun, and it's going to kick off the holidays. So we're asking your permission for the use of the common and all that will take place.
Okay.
Sounds great, Debbie. Thank
you.
you for organizing that.
For the public event application, I'm going to make the motion that we approve it. I move that the Board of Selectmen approve the public event application of the Board of Recreation for the first annual Light the Night event in Foxborough Common, November 29th, and approvals have been given by the police, the fire, and the DPW.
I'll second that, and I'm really looking forward to it. It ought to be a lot of fun.
Good, thanks. I hope that we have a good turnout. We don't know, there might be 10 families, there might be 110, but it will grow.
And will there be more information in the newspaper?
I hope so, and we also have sent flyers home through the schools. It's on our Facebook, it's on the JC's websites. We're getting it out there as much as we can.
Good. Great. Thank you. We have to approve it.
Okay, thank you.
Do you want to second
I did.
All those in favor?
it? Aye.
Thank you. Thanks, Debbie.
Continue or?
Okay, we should get back to the agenda.
Okay.
Okay, the next item on the agenda is the Lakeview Pavilion, a discussion regarding waiver of the liquor license fee.
Madam Chair, this is an item which is unusual in and of itself because of the fact that we're dealing with a business, local business, who has obviously been the victim of a significant fire and damage during the past year. We were pleased to see that at the groundbreaking ceremony, which was held just a few weeks ago, that they are planning to reconstruct their facility, that being the Lakeview Pavilion, which in many cases is very close and dear to a lot of folks here in Foxborough, as they've used it for a number of events over the years. The ABCC has recommended to the town that in situations where businesses have come across a situation like this, that the board actually act to waive the fee for the upcoming year. I will note, as I have noted to Selectman Gray, that this business has not asked for any money back for the current year, which obviously they lost most of their business during this current year. They did not ask for any money back, but as a goodwill gesture, we're asking that you consider waiving the fee for the upcoming year. It's also consideration that the board, if they so choose, that if they do go back into business during the course of the year, they can actually prorate that fee if you so choose. Again, I've also noted that given the circumstances and what they put up with during the past year, I think it'll be a nice business gesture to waive it for the year. But that's entirely your call.
Bill, can you just remind us about the amount of the fee?
I meant to ask and check that before I left, so I want to say it's in the $2,500 range for the year.
Is it?
I believe it's in that range, and I could be mistaken, but Debbie, do you know? It's okay. I apologize.
I think it's probably around that.
It's
yeah.
in that range. Yeah.
So does this mean at the end of the year, when all the licenses are renewed, we'll still renew it, but
But there'll be no.
with the idea is they won't really be using it until fall?
Yes, that's correct. Yeah, their plan is to be open by possibly next September, but that's obviously things can change, and we're hoping that is true, but certainly that could be different.
Any questions? Okay. I think it's a great
Mhm.
idea, and I understand that all that's necessary is for them to sign the paperwork and provide proof of the liquor license liability insurance,
That's
and then
correct.
we can waive the fee.
But I think that
And it is authorized by Mass General Law for us to
that's
do
right.
that.
It's authorized by the board, and the ABCC does allow this to happen. But certainly at the board's discretion.
Okay.
Okay.
Can I have a motion for that, please?
I make a motion that the Foxborough Board of Selectmen waive the liquor license fee for Lakeview Pavilion for 2015.
I'll second that.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, we're a little bit ahead of schedule here. We can go back to the action items.
Okay. I move that the Board of Selectmen accept the donation to the Animal Control Office of $200 from Ellen and Howard Ebner of Sharon for animal adoption, and an additional donation.
Second.
All those in favor?
All right. And this is the third request for change of hours. I move that the Board of Selectmen accept the application for a change of hours for JAK Corner Store, 79 Summer Street, to allow for 10 a.m. Sunday openings.
I'll second that, and then just a reminder that this is, they can change the hours by right based on a recent state statute. So we're just ceremoniously approving them.
All those in favor?
All right,
Thank you.
okay, that's it.
Okay. Not to put you on the spot or anything, Mary Beth, but would you like to give us a little update? We have a couple of minutes here, just wondering how things are going.
I'd be happy to.
Great.
I started week 6, and things are going along very well. I'd like to remind any employees or board members who are interested, we're holding a Darkness to Light training tomorrow morning at the Boyden Library from 9:30 to 11:30. This program was well underway before I started my employment with the town of Foxborough, and it's a great commitment that the town's made to protect the children of Foxborough from sexual abuse, and we've committed to have all of our employees trained by December 15th, so there is a group training at the Boyden Library Community Room from 9:30 to 11:30, and everyone's invited. We are excited to have re-energized the Personnel and Warrant Committee. We have a meeting tomorrow evening from 5:30 to 7:30, and just to echo that, it's a 5-member board, and we currently have only 4 members, so if anyone's interested who has perhaps a human resources or employment law background, would love to have your volunteer ability. We are planning to meet about 5:30 p.m. on either Mondays or Wednesdays, and if that's a convenient time for folks, we're taking on the town personnel bylaw, looking at that closely for recommendations for a Springtown meeting. We're looking at compensation strategies. Bill and I attended a workshop on compensation plans, and we're excited about that. I'll be introducing an employee survey to the Personnel and Wage Committee for their edits, and we're going to be surveying our employees on on topics of interest in employment, benefits, wellness, and just general working conditions, and maybe any good ideas and feedback that they have. So we've got a lot of things on the agenda to get this board going again, and we're thrilled because for Bill and I, it's a policy committee that we feel like we can bounce ideas off of, in addition to the Board of Selectmen regarding personnel stuff, wage classification, job descriptions. So we're excited to get that going again.
Thanks very much.
You're welcome.
I have 7:29.
7:29 and counting.
Madam Chair, if I could just take a moment, I know this is not part of my update tonight, but I did want to take an opportunity to thank the town meeting, the Board of Selectmen, the advisory committee. I'm so used to calling it the Finance Committee, so I apologize for the error there. And especially the working group, who worked really, really hard to bring about the result of last night's funding of the plans for the new town hall. I know this has been a source of concern and frustration for folks for a long, long time. And for those folks that didn't support us last night, we're going to work twice as hard for them to earn their support in this process, because we recognize that this is going to be the community's building. It's not going to be the building just for the town hall employees. It's going to be for a lot of folks to be proud of, a building that we will identify with for many, many years to come, and that it has historic presence in the center of town, so we're going to make sure that it reflects that, and it's an historic community such as Foxborough. So we're very, 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 very pleased and appreciative that the town supported us last night in an effort that took a long time to get to. And sometimes things do take longer than they should, but you know what? It means that we value them that much more. So I personally am grateful, especially being one of the first initiatives that was literally started within weeks of starting here in my employment, that it was approved last night and supported by a pretty good margin. So I appreciate the work and the support that the residents of the community gave us last night. So thank you.
Any other updates?
Oh, well, I'd just like to say I went to the Southeastern Regional Vocational High School in Southeastern, had an open house on Saturday, which I attended. Town of Foxborough does support it. We do send students there. And I was very impressed with the school. They offer a lot for the students. And what really impressed me was there were a lot of parents there with their sons and daughters. And the sons and daughters looked very young because they were, going into high school, so they were kind of young. But then they were speaking to the students of the school, who were probably seniors, and the students who were explaining what they were doing. Like I was there with the automotive group. The students there, they were very articulate, very proud of what they learned, and they were very good talking to the students, to the prospective students and the parents. So it was a really nice experience. It was very crowded. There were a lot of people going to that open house. But I think it's money well spent by the town of Foxborough and the surrounding towns to be supportive of these kids who choose to go into this line of work. And I'm sorry I missed Steve. I was looking for Steve Uden there Saturday, but I did get a chance to talk to some other people. And but anyway, it was very nice, and thank you for encouraging us to go to see it. Yeah. Okay.
Anything?
2 minutes to go before the public hearing.
All right. Let's see. Okay. Gonna go, Maureen? Okay, go. Thank you. The Board of Selectmen of the Town of Foxborough, acting as the local licensing authority pursuant to Mass General Laws, Chapter 138, will be changing the location of the public hearing on Tuesday, November 18, 2014, at 7:35 p.m. to the Foxborough Ahern Middle School Auditorium, 111 Mechanic Street, Foxborough, Mass. An application to alter the premises of an annual all-alcoholic beverages in-holders license for MBC Inn and Lounge Incorporated, doing business as Ancient Mariner, 7 Mechanic Street, Foxborough, Mass. Manager Joyce Carlson, which was originally scheduled to be held at the Foxborough High School Media Center on South Street. All interested persons are invited to attend the hearing. Thank you, Jen. I'd like to invite the representatives of the Ancient Mariner, please. Good evening.
Hi.
Welcome. Could you please state your names?
Joyce Carlson.
Lowell Carlson.
Thank you. Would you like to give us just an overview of the changes that you're proposing?
It's mostly just to remodel the inside of the downstairs lounge, to improve it and modernize it, and to add, to make the seating more appropriate for the size of the building. And our plan is to move the bar in approximately 6 feet, and it'll be shaped almost identically as it is, although it'll be brought in more so that we can allow more seating for our motel guests. Our motel is growing by leaps and bounds, and in order to accommodate the guests of the motel and our regular customers, we do not have appropriate seating for the food part of it. So we're just trying to make it more appropriate for what the business is doing at this time.
How many additional seats are you going to have? I'm imagining this is the latest rendering.
I just got my permit from Mr. Caspera today, and we're changing it to 125 from 77.
That's total occupancy, or is that
No,
seating?
we also have a small bar upstairs that we've had for a number of years, and that seats 33.
Okay.
And then we're also licensed for the outside bar, which there's no seating capacity. There's a size, but no seating capacity for that part of it. It's only open in the summer.
So these plans have been already reviewed by the inspector and also the police and fire for public safety?
Bill Caspera took care of all that, and he issued me my building permit today. Yes.
When do you plan on starting the renovations?
Tomorrow.
Great.
Very
So-
timely.
Well, we've been waiting, but we were waiting on the building permit to get started on the remodeling.
So if there was a change in the drawing from what is, what we are looking at this evening, I think we have to make sure that that accompanies the license, this application. So you just might want to touch base with Sandra Herman.
A change in the drawing?
Did you mention there was a change in the seating?
Oh, that's already been addressed.
That's already addressed on here? Okay.
Yeah,
thank
this is
you.
the latest rendering downstairs, and
Okay.
Yeah. Because we were going to change it, but because when we met with Bill, we were going to change it to a higher amount, and Bill recommended that we go to the 125, and we were okay with that.
Okay.
It does have enough area to go larger, but we really didn't necessarily want to go that large, but the architect had drawn it for that, and then we met with Bill, and he recommended the 125, which we're okay with
So
that.
this is revised? to that?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
And he said that I had to make sure I left it at for the purpose of you reviewing it.
so the way you were able to do this is, did you have to move a wall to move the bar back?
We're not doing any structural work whatsoever. We are moving a door, but it doesn't affect the structure in any way. And the only other things we're doing is moving the bar, and then, but there's no structural there.
Okay.
And then bringing in tables and new chairs, tables, and,
Yeah, but by moving the bar back, it opens up the, sort of the dining area.
yeah, yes, it allows for more seating.
Okay.
Did you have to change your parking, the parking situation to accommodate the extra seats? Is that a requirement?
No, we still are okay with that, because we increased our parking back some time ago, and we never did, because we wanted to wait to do the remodeling. So we increased our parking kind of ahead of, before we ever came to do the remodeling. So our parking is still fine.
About how long do you think the remodel will take place?
Well, we're going to do it in sections so that we don't have to close for too long. They've given us 6 months. I'm hoping it's going to be done within 4.
Okay.
Completely done from top to bottom.
Okay. I move that the Board of Selectmen approve the alteration of premises request from MBC in,
I think we need to close the public.
oh, I'm sorry.
Just want to ask if there are any members of the public who would like to comment? No? Seeing none.
Okay, now I move to close the public hearing.
I'll second that.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Thank you.
Okay, now I'll make the motion. I move that the Board of Selectmen approve the alteration of premises request from MBC Inn and Lounge Incorporated, doing business as the Ancient Mariner.
There was a motion to approve the alteration.
Yeah.
I'll second that.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. Good
Good
luck.
luck, yeah.
Thank you very much.
Take care. Okay, we're just moving along way too quickly here. About, I know.
I'm done with the action items.
Go through the information packet.
Can we start them early now?
Hmm?
Can we start the next item early?
I think because it's an important topic, I
You want to wait?
want to wait, yeah. So why don't we go through the information packet here? We have from the Foxborough Zoning Board information regarding the move of a nonconforming sign at 29 Washington Street. This is before the Zoning Board of Appeals. And actually, this next item, State Police parking lot inspections, which took place on 10/26/14. Chief O'Leary, you're in the audience. Would you mind commenting on this? Just noticed that there are a couple of inconsistencies, it seems, with what's expected to be found versus what was found for some of the lots. If you could just give us a little background as to what this is about.
Actually, ma'am, one of the things about checking on the lots is just to ensure compliance. All of the lot owners are operating under a license issued by the Board of Selectmen, and we wanted to make sure that the standards that are established in the license are being upheld. I did ask Captain Morey of the State Police to undertake the actual inspections for us because the last games, especially the night games, our staff was overcommitted with the security issues around the stadium and the crowd management issues. They have completed their report, and I will be directly contacting a few of the lots myself that may have had problems, and then I will provide a report to the board in the near future about the overall findings of the inspection.
Is this something that you just do once a season, or is it how frequently?
Not even that frequently, unfortunately, but thanks to the assistance of the state police, we were able to conduct a very thorough review of all the lots that are licensed by this board.
One of the things I noticed that really stood out was there was one lot that is licensed for 360 cars, but it was 98 over the permit. That's, I can see 1 or 2 cars over the permit, but 98, that's a lot of extra cars that have it, that are not
Right,
licensed,
I'll
permitted.
address those overage or with the operator of the lot,
Yeah,
because it could impact the relicensing of the lots if it's a continuing practice, and now we can focus on perhaps some people that doing addition and subtraction might be beyond.
Yeah. I mean, in fairness to the other lot owners who follow the rules and park as many cars as they're licensed for, I think it's something really that should be looked at, especially that greater number. You know,
Right, because that was a
overage.
fairly high percentage difference.
Yeah. And these aren't all the lots, right? I understand there are more that just haven't been
Correct.
looked at.
I haven't had an opportunity myself to see the continuation of the inspection. They had to break off due to some traffic-related issues, so the team assigned to it only got a certain percentage. They completed it, though, at one of the other games that we've had since that particular inspection. And I wanted the board to have a full picture to take a look at all the lots and their compliance.
And this was a surprise inspection? I mean, they didn't really have any inkling that there was an inspection going to go on? So this is normal?
Right,
yeah.
it was just a plan to operate, that they should be aware of any type of inspection at any time when they're under license, and I thought it was an appropriate methodology.
Mhm. Okay, thanks.
Great. Thanks very much, Chief.
Thanks, Chief.
All right, thank you.
We'll wait for the report.
Okay, the next item we have is a letter from Bill asking for consideration for appointment to the 495 Metro West Edge Community Commission. It's addressed to the governor. Bill, can you just tell us a little bit about what is involved with this?
Yes, this is a special commission that's been appointed, that was approved by the legislature during the past year, asking for individuals to serve on a commission that will evaluate the needs of the region, looking at economic development issues, transportation issues, looking at all kinds of various aspects that would actually contribute towards development, economic development of the region. Given my background and professional experience, I thought that it would be appropriate, and also given the fact that from Foxborough being one of the major contributors to economic development in the region, that I submitted my name for consideration for serving on this commission. The Metro West Partnership has been appreciative of my actually submitting my application, but again, it's something that the governor has to appoint, and so we're waiting to see if in fact that will be accepted or not. It's interesting to me that this will even go forward at this point, given the fact that we have a new governor. This may be passed over eventually to the new Governor Baker to see if in fact he will take that action up, given it's so late in the term for this current governor. So we'll have to wait and see, but it's possible that action may be taken, but it's uncertain at this time.
Thank you. Okay, the next item is a packet for the Zoning Board of Appeals regarding site plan review, Wyman Village, A Community Way. This is a supplemental site plan review for the 40B comprehensive permit application. It's on file. Xfinity announcing their rate changes.
Does that happen annually? Do we get that notification?
You know, I
think I've seen
don't,
that before. How often does
I don't know
Xfinity
how
update their
often.
rates?
They can actually update them more often than that.
Can they?
And sometimes they'll do it twice a year. It really depends upon how their contractual arrangements are for the various networks and providers, especially companies like HBO and Showcase and Stars, those types of pay-per-view services. Those contractual arrangements change throughout the year, and as a result, that can change the rates. So you may see, it may happen once or twice a year, depending upon how well the rates are working with the various providers.
And this is posted in the town hall.
Yes, yeah, we do post them.
Okay, the next item caught my eye. U.S. Department of Transportation Federal Aviation Phase 3 of the Boston Logan Airport Noise Study. Made me wonder if, in addition to discussing a railway, we'd be discussing the location of an airport in Foxborough, but it's not.
Well, I think they're experimenting with flight patterns going in and out of Logan, and because we fall within I think it was a 20-mile circumference of Logan Airport, we had to be informed of these experiments that they're
Right.
conducting. Bill, to your knowledge, they're not planning to change any flight paths over Foxborough, right?
Not at this time. I think this is just a noise they determine if there's been a significant change. They had a recent flight path change, which I was actually working in Dedham at the time, and where they did change the flight path of a couple of runways, and that was obviously subject to some controversy, but it has been operational for almost a year now, and I believe this is probably just a follow-up study to determine if there's any significant change in the noise levels.
Yeah, it was on the news that they did, they changed the pattern over, I think it was Quincy, so that if
Yes.
it goes over Quincy in the morning, it's not going to go over at night, so you won't be...
Impacted both ways.
Impacted both ways, yeah.
Thank you. Okay, and the last item in the packet is a notice from the planning board regarding an accessory apartment special permit request, and that's all the information, so
The line is now 8:50.
yeah. 7:50.
Sorry.
All right, so it being 7:50, I'd like to invite David Moeller from the MBTA. He'll be providing us with a presentation regarding the proposed new passenger train service in Foxborough.
Madam Chair, and members of the community, Mr. Moeller is the Executive Director of Planning for the Department of Transportation. He also serves as the Chairman of the MPO, the Metropolitan Planning Organization, who I've had some experience with over the years. And Mr. Moeller has been with that organization for quite some time, so he's well-versed in these types of issues. So we appreciate having his ability, presenting it tonight.
I'd also like to acknowledge that there are a couple of members of the Walpole Board of Selectmen present. Thank you for coming.
Jay's here too. Jay
Oh,
Harris.
thanks.
Didn't see him.
Jay's here.
And I'd also like to acknowledge Jay Barrows. Representative Jay Barrows is here this evening. Thank you for coming. Okay. Do we have someone from Senator Timilty's office?
Yes.
Patrick Shields.
Patrick.
Patrick, thank you for coming.
Welcome.
Okay.
People from Foxborough want to get an opportunity to speak?
Yes.
People from outside of town?
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay.
We have a microphone set up over here.
We can
or you use one of these
move it.
microphones.
We can bring one over to you. Okay.
That's all right.
Okay, so welcome.
Thank you. As Bill said, I'm David Moeller. I'm the Executive Director of the Office of Transportation Planning for the Massachusetts Department of Transportation. If anybody needs to reach me after this, my phone number is 857-368-8865, and my email is david.moeller, M-O-H-L-E-R, @state.ma.us. So we've handed out this to each of you as well as the audience members so that everyone can follow along as I speak. It's also on the two boards displayed up there. What I think I'll start with is what the project we're talking about is. And then we can talk about why we think it's good for the region, good for Foxborough, good for the MBTA. And then we can talk about the process to date, both how we got here, what we've done, what the steps are, where we are, and what the steps would be going forward. So the project is, if you look at your map, extending commuter rail down to Foxborough, and that would be actually down to Gillette Stadium, where there is a current commuter rail platform. The commuter rail that would be extended is the Fairmont line. For those of you who aren't familiar with the Fairmont line, it is the only commuter rail line that operates wholly within the city of Boston. So today, if you look at your map and those green dots, that is the Fairmont line today. Starts at South Station, goes through those stations till it gets to Reedville, turns around and goes back. We would extend it from Reedville down to Foxborough with no stops in between, and then would express back from Foxborough to Reedville and make all the stops back into South Station. On the back of your map, which is the second picture, is an aerial view of Gillette Stadium where the current platform is. The red hatch is parking. It's existing parking that would be made available to the MBTA, to commuter rail riders. The yellow highlighted area is a piece of property that would be ceded to the MBTA MassDOT for future possible layover, storage, or maintenance area. So, how we got here. In 2010 and 2011, there were two separate studies done, both of which examined the need for commuter rail to Foxborough. They both estimated, I believe, that approximately, if there was a station in Foxborough, approximately 650 new riders would ride from that station. That translates in our world into a need for 500 parking spots if you're going to do a project. So that is new riders. That doesn't count the riders who currently drive from Foxborough and go to Mansfield or Walpole. So there was an identified need for commuter rail riders, for commuter rail here. We then met with the craft group to discuss the possibility of converting the current commuter rail platform from an event-only platform into a commuter rail platform. That would mean roughly weekday service, no weekend services yet. The Fairmont line itself does not have weekend service. It would probably mean 2 a.m. peak trains and 2 p.m. peak trains and 1 midday train, at least until we saw if ridership determined that we needed more. It may mean the construction of a maintenance facility or a layover facility. The parking is existing parking that the craft group would make available to the MBTA during normal commuting times. They would manage and operate the parking. They would take the operating revenue out of the parking payment, and then the excess revenue would be given to the MBTA to help subsidize the operating costs of this project. Where we are today is we met with the craft group for several months, probably beginning, I would think, around January. In March, we executed a letter of intent, which laid out the 4 corners of a possible agreement. We do not have an agreement. It's a non-binding letter of intent. It basically says, we were interested in doing this. They were amenable to us doing this. We talked about the need for parking. We talked about the possibility of a layover facility. We don't have a committed agreement that commits us to do this or commits the crafts to do anything with us. We have a letter of intent. We have, however, been in negotiations. We have not finalized those negotiations. They are not final. This is not a done deal. So we brought Bill in to talk about it, and he very appropriately said, it's very nice you brought me in, but you need to go talk to the legislators and you need to go talk to my Board of Selectmen. So at the request of Representative Barrow and Senator Timilty in November, early November, like November 5th, we met with the entire delegation, both Representative Barrow and Senator Timilty, their staffs, as well as representatives of, I think, Walpole, Sharon. So I told Bill that I had to meet with them before I could come here. So we're here tonight, and then after tonight, we're going to brief the Walpole Board of Selectmen on December 2nd. And so then we will take all of the public comments. We will figure out whether this makes sense, whether this is an appropriate thing to do. If we do this, we first have to finalize our negotiations with the craft group. Then we have to make improvements to, see the yellow line there? I'll tell you more about that in a second. We have to make improvements to that line to accept commuter rail, and then we could begin operating. That is not going to happen this year. I'm not sure it could happen next year, even if we wanted to. But if we go, we'll go as quickly as we can. So the yellow line, so everybody knows, is the Framingham secondary. It currently is owned by CSX, but in July, we got the authority from our board of directors to buy it. I expect that deal will close hopefully before the end of the calendar year, subject to Surface Transportation Board approval. We bought that line not because we've determined to extend commuter rail to Foxborough. You can't, to be very obviously honest, you can't extend commuter rail to Foxborough without owning that line. But whether we ever extend commuter rail to Foxborough or not, that line is a valuable piece of property that connects the Framingham, Franklin, and Worcester lines. It makes a lot of sense for it to be, given that CSX was willing to sell it, it makes a lot of sense for it to be in the hands of MassDOT and the MBTA. And I think that's, that's basically the 4 corners of what we've done and why we're here. And I'm happy to take questions from you, or if you want, from the audience, however you want to handle this.
Why don't we start with questions from the board, please?
Yes.
Can I begin?
Go ahead, John.
Just a question of process. You've been meeting privately with the craft organization, I guess, as you said, last January?
That's an estimate. I don't really know the date we started.
And I don't know how the MBTA operates, but why would you approach this without approaching the 2 most impacted towns first? Why wouldn't you get public input first? Why was this all done quietly and without any invitation to the people of Walpole and the people of Foxborough to participate?
Well, I guess first off, it is clear that we did this poorly. We shouldn't have needed Bill to say, hey, you've got to go talk to the Board of Selectmen. you've got to go talk to the legislators. But it is not necessarily unusual for us to talk to the private landowner when we want to do something that impacts private property. Particularly when what we need is significant help from a private landowner.
My second question is, we've been told for the last few years by the Commonwealth of Massachusetts in the MBTA that the MBTA is broke. How could one possibly, and I think this is a $23 million expenditure, how can one possibly go spend money when you don't have money?
No. So let me clear this up. This is not a $23 million expenditure. So buying the Framingham secondary line is an expenditure of MassDOT money, not MBTA money, MassDOT money. MassDOT will own that property. That is the capital expenditure to date. The actual expenditure that would be capital or operating to operate this service is minimal because it is an extension of existing service. So we'll buy no new train sets, we'll operate no new train sets, and the revenue that comes from parking will hopefully pay the subsidy that the tickets don't pay.
Okay. One last question. The yellow line that goes from Foxborough to Mansfield, what's that all about?
The yellow line from Foxborough to Mansfield? So the yellow line is, the entire yellow line is the Framingham secondary. It goes from the Worcester commuter rail line all the way down to Mansfield. That's the right-of-way we're currently buying from CSX. The part from Foxborough to Mansfield is just because we colored in the Foxborough line. It looks like two separate lines, but it's really just a continuation of one long line from the Worcester line to the Franklin line to the Providence line, Attleboro line.
But as part of this program, are you envisioning service to Mansfield as well?
No.
Okay.
Nor to downtown Foxborough. Deadheads, it stops at Gillette, turns around and goes back.
Now, I also understand that the carriages will be different, and the travel from Foxborough to Walpole will be a separate line, and then one would have to transfer from that train to a regular commuter rail. Is that true?
No. So again, let me clear this up. There are two issues. One is, right now, the Fairmont line is a commuter rail line.
Right.
Operates with 6 to 9 to 8 cars and a locomotive. In the short term, that will be the train that comes down to Foxborough and goes back and forth. We are examining the possibility of purchasing diesel multiple unit vehicles for use throughout our system. DMUs are self-propelled vehicles that operate on commuter rail tracks and consists of either 2 or 3. So instead of having 6 to 8 cars come down, 2 to 3 cars would come down, and they would be more akin to the Green Line, sort of, okay? It wouldn't really look or feel like a commuter rail car, but it would operate on commuter rail tracks. So the first commitment we have, if we actually do purchase DMUs, which we don't own any today, we haven't purchased them yet, our long-term plan is to purchase them. If we purchase them, our first commitment to run them is on the Fairmont line. If that happens, we will run DMUs from the Fairmont line down to Foxborough and back. We will never run a commuter rail line and make you shift in shift in Walpole or wherever and get on a different train. It will run DMU service all the way down and all the way back.
You had said that you envisioned that there'd be 650 new riders.
Yes.
Using this line. Would that be 650 commuters going into Boston from the Foxborough area, or would that be traffic going both ways? In other words, folks from the terminal point of the Fairmont line coming to Patriot Place, or would that just be commuters going into Boston every day?
That is 650 commuters originating in Foxborough. They may come from surrounding communities to park there, but 650 people getting on at Foxborough
Heading
going
north.
to Boston, yes.
Okay. All right, I'll take a breather.
Judy, on the map, you have, you show green dots for the Fairmont line, but you also show white dots. Could you explain what those white dots are?
Yes, those white dots are, I gotta take my glasses off to be able to see better. Those white dots are on the Franklin line. So currently, there is service on the Franklin line that stops at all of those white dots.
Well, the white dots are also on the other lines, so
Yes.
are the white dots stations?
Yes, but the difference is, what's a white dot currently has service on the Franklin line and will continue to have service on the Franklin line, but it won't be served by the Foxborough trains. The green dots, with the exception of Foxborough, are currently only served by Fairmont trains, but the green dot at Foxborough shows you that the green dots are one line, one service on a line, and the white dots are another service on the line.
So
It's how it exists today.
Is it clear to say that the service from the Foxborough station to the Reedville would be an express service?
Yes, absolutely, yes. So you'd get on in Foxborough and you wouldn't stop to pick up or discharge passengers till you got to Reedville, inside the city limits of Boston.
And the trains right now that are on the Reedville line, they're the regular commuter trains that we're all familiar with that
Yes.
we see? Okay.
Yes.
And where would they begin? Where would they be housed?
Right, so, they currently are housed in Reedville. If we extend this service and we build a facility, they will be stored, the ones that actually operate in Foxborough would be stored in Foxborough. We do not yet have any money in our budget to build a facility in Foxborough. So until or unless we did that, they would start the day in Reedville, deadhead down to Foxborough, and then go back. If we ultimately decide to do DMU, it's the same thing. And if we actually ultimately, again, built a facility, the DMUs that operate up and down the corridor would be stored in Foxborough.
But there's a possibility that down the road, if you're using the existing trains in Reedville right now, and right now you're saying that they would be overnight in Reedville and then come down to Foxborough and then go back, that to me, down the road, would seem to be not cost-effective after a while. So would this mean that the plans would change and they would terminus at Foxborough? And if that, excuse me?
I'm sorry. I thought
No,
you
go
said-
ahead.
sorry. That is certainly a possibility. So there are two possibilities with commuter rail service to Foxborough. Well, three. One is that we would continue to store them in Reedville and deadhead them down and back. Another is that we would build a layover facility on that orange area or some other area that we could come to an agreement with the Kraft Group on. And then those trains, again, only the trains that serve Foxborough, so we're talking about probably 2 trains would lay over there, maybe 3, because it depends on whether the midday train would have to lay over there or not. The third possibility is there may be enough space on the actual commuter rail platform area that we could park trains there even without building a maintenance facility, but that is not our plan. But I want to be honest to everybody about what the possibilities are.
Yeah, and it's my understanding that the diesel trains that are going, that are in use now and that you would be using until, when they lay over overnight, they run all night, right?
No, we do plug-ins mostly now, anytime we do something new. So they're not running all night overnight.
Even in Reedville right now, they don't run overnight, all night?
No, they're plug-ins. So what that is.
What do you mean by plug-in? I'm sorry.
So there is a, and I'm going to get this wrong so the community rail guys can jump in. There is like an electrical box that runs.
There's a cable you can plug into the train itself. The hotel power to the train can still operate, so you still have lights, air conditioning, heating, that kind of thing. But the locomotive itself is able to be shut down and keep the fluids running through the locomotive so it doesn't freeze.
Right, and you literally, you plug the train in to like an electrical box, and it keeps the things that have to be running while the actual engine is shut down.
Okay, but.
It's much quieter. It's not quiet. I mean, it's not silent, but it's much quieter than what people were used to.
How much is much quieter? Because there's, that.
I don't.
When the trains are plugged in at night, they're not making any noise. No, you wouldn't hear them.
Right, I mean, I've stood next to them and they're not noisy at all.
The locomotive is shut down.
Madam Chair, I think it's appropriate to bring this to the microphone because
Please come to the
people at home can't hear this. And so I apologize.
All right, Steve, you coming over? Introduce yourself, Steve, when you get here.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Thank you.
My name's Stephen Jones. I'm the Director of Transportation and Customer Service for the MBTA for commuter rail and water transportation. And what I was saying about the diesel locomotives being plugged in, that is the practice throughout our system by EPA. We have to shut the locomotives down. It is only if the temperature were to fall way below zero that we would then ask permission to turn them on just because of the cold weather. It's not unlike a diesel car where people plug them in at night to keep the engine block warm, so that diesel car isn't making any noise. The same thing essentially happens to the locomotives. We plug them in at night so that they don't make any noise, but it keeps the engine block warm and functional so we can start it up. And that's absolutely the process that we would use and have to use if, as Mr. Moeller said, we ended up storing the 2 train sets in the, to lay over at Foxborough that would start in the morning.
If you start it up in the morning, is it an instantaneous startup, so you just turn the key and go, or is there a warm-up period? In other words, would you be running the train before it actually leaves the station to go on its first run?
Yeah, that's correct. There is a, not only a warm-up period, but more specifically, there are federal regulations that we have to follow to test the train and its brake system. So typically, depending on the location of where the train is laid over, if it has to travel once it's tested to get to the station, we start it up a little bit earlier. Generally throughout the system, it's not more than an hour, but where these, in particular, if these trains were laid over at the station, they don't have to travel far to get there, so I dare say the time would be that much less. I can't tell you exactly what it would be, but to answer your question, yes, they have to be started up, warmed up, and some federal tests done for the brake system before they can move.
Okay. In the we got a copy of the minutes of your meeting on, I think it was January 18th, I believe, and June. I'm sorry, June. And one of the reasons for the stated reasons for this plan was because of the lack of parking at Walpole, Sharon, and Mansfield stations. And as I don't recall anyone coming to the Board of Selectmen asking for increased parking at Mansfield. And the town of Foxborough actually provides the residents of Foxborough with parking because we have our own parking lot on County Street, which is in Foxborough, but right near the Mansfield train station. And people park there, they're shuttled to the station, or they can walk to it, and it's worked out very well. I don't know exactly how many spaces are allowed, but I do know for a fact that that parking lot is not filled. So the argument that for the town of Foxborough, lack of commuter parking for residents, I don't know where that came from, because we have parking and it's actually underused. Now, I don't know about the situation in the town of Walpole. I don't know about the situation in the town of Sharon, but I do know one thing. People in Foxborough have not complained about a lack of parking in order to get to a commuter rail train to go into Boston. Can you say why, how this was started, and how you can justify using that argument?
Well, parking throughout the system, we struggle with parking almost everywhere, and in Mansfield, we have approximately 800 parking spaces, I believe, and we load somewhere around 2,100 people a day coming inbound. Mansfield, Sharon, Beverly, and Salem are our 4 heaviest loading stations on the system out of the 13 lines. And at Sharon, which is run by the city, the parking lot is run by the city, there is somewhere around 540, 550 spots, and we load somewhere around 1,400 people a day. I know that there are parking issues there. I can't address what you just said, that there are plenty of spaces available. That's not my understanding. I understood that it's been quite crowded, but if that's not the case today, then I'd stand corrected. But we know that those are heavily loading, 2 of our heaviest loading stations on the system today. And Walpole, I think it was just somewhere around 8 or 10 years ago, they built in satellite parking lot because of constraints on their parking. And I don't know exactly where they are today, but that was constructed some time ago, within 10 years, I'm sure.
Yeah, so the use of satellite parking lots is not something that you're unfamiliar with. And I would imagine the use of a satellite parking lot with shuttle to the stations would be a less expensive option for the MBTA to use than putting money into a station that supposedly is far, because of the lack of parking at other stations. I mean, have you looked into the use of satellite parking lots with the shuttle to the Walpole station or Sharon? Well, Walpole probably would be the closest station.
No.
How come?
Because I think because this is a solution that extends commuter rail directly down to what we consider to be an underserved community and provides ample on-site parking.
Hey, can I jump on that for a second?
Yeah, please.
Really getting to the root of the issue here, could you walk us through the process? I know it's a multi-year process, of how you determined the need for this and who was involved in determining that need? Because obviously the impacted towns were not. So we're wondering, and we understand that you've met with the craft organization a number of times, so you can tell us exactly when the need was determined, how it was determined, and who determined it. I guess that's the question that probably most of these people in the room have, is to say, how did all this happen so secretly?
Right, and
just don't answer that last question first. Go to
okay,
the first one.
yeah.
I want to know about the
All right,
process.
So start in, I believe it was 2010. I think it was Housing and Economic Development that did a feasibility study. And then again in 2011, a second, I think, further on study was conducted. Those are all public documents. I didn't think then and don't think now that they were done in the secret. They are where we come up with our estimates of 650 riders if we do a
So you're
station
saying
there.
this particular group said, I'm going to do a study on commuter rail service to Foxborough?
Yes.
Where was the origination of the idea?
Right. So because it is housing and economic development, the origination of the idea was in issues related to housing and economic development in Foxborough, more specifically at Patriot Place.
Okay, how did that's where I'm getting lost. Who started the conversation?
I actually don't know. I assume it was housing and economic development, but I don't know. I don't work for them. I wasn't there. I mean, I could guess, but I don't want to guess.
John, the second study was initiated by Myrick O'Connell, a law firm in Worcester.
Well, maybe you can speak on that, because I don't know.
I had attended a meeting a couple years back where it was actually a surprise to many to hear that there was this review going on, and we asked specifically, where is this coming from? And, you know, Myrick O'Connell, who funded the study, you're familiar with the Myrick O'Connell study?
Yeah,
I believe that's the second study you're referring to.
Yeah, I don't. I didn't realize they funded it, but yes.
Talked about, you know, some of these ideas, the idea of having the commuter rail end in Foxborough with potentially connections to Providence, to Framingham, all the way through.
And just so I can be clear, it's not unusual for HED, as part of their brief to do economic development, to look at transportation as a linchpin driver to economic development. So that transportation isn't just about transportation for transportation's sake. It's also about economic development. And so it's not unusual. I don't want anybody to walk away thinking somehow, oh my God, why did HED do this? It's not unusual for HED to do studies that impact transportation and to talk to MassDOT about, hey, we think this makes sense, what do you think?
Madam Chair?
Yes.
I'm just going to comment that I believe that HED normally does studies based on regional economic development potentials. And is it fair to say that because of the development that's gone on at Patriot Place in and around that particular area in the region, that this was viewed as being an area that with potential growth that could actually be built well-served by a commuter rail station based on that potential growth.
Yes,
Is that-
absolutely. So part of the commitment of our administration is twofold. First, to try to leverage existing infrastructure where you can, and secondly, to try to make transportation help generate economic development where appropriate. And we think the most appropriate place is where there are transit connections.
So, back to the Myra O'Connell presentation, while the presentation was viewed by a small group of residents from the town, the reaction at that time was certainly strong. With concerns raised about having a train come to Foxborough and the impact on Foxborough at that time. So, fast forward to now, I think that that's one of the two studies that's been used to identify this need. And at the time...
Was that study originated by?
No.
No?
Not
Okay.
to my knowledge.
Okay.
I believe at the meeting, they were asked directly, and they responded that they had initiated the study independently.
That law firm had?
Yes, for
That's unusual.
some reason.
Why would they
Yeah.
do that?
At the time, there was discussion that it had something to do with the Metropolitan Area Planning Commission also, that they were linked to that group, but they were presenting it as their independent study at the time. Okay.
So let me clarify, you're talking about two things. One is to move 650 new riders from the Foxborough area to Boston.
Yes.
Secondly, your economic development discussion is to bring customers to Foxborough. Is that true? That's what economic development's all about.
Yeah, I not just customers. And again, because those first two studies weren't transportation DOT studies, I don't believe either one of them talked about a maintenance facility. And I don't believe either one of them necessarily identified the Fairmont corridor as the corridor that would be used. So it's true it's about bringing customers. It's true about bringing workers who may desire a job in Foxborough where there may be jobs available and can't easily get here.
What kind of development was used as justification for your coming up with this proposal? Because right now, the development on Route 1 has not been defined, what they would like to do. So what was proposed or thrown out there just in regard to any kind of development on the Route 1 area? Because we don't know what's going on in Route 1, so we thought maybe you might know what's going on in Route 1?
I don't know what's going on Route 1.
So you don't know what's going on in Route 1 either?
No.
You're not
No.
privy to anything, any plans?
No, I've had no discussions about specific or even general development plans on Route 1.
Okay. Can I ask more? Usually when, Town of Foxborough used to have a train stop, and this was years ago. And because we had a train stop, our MBTA assessment was much higher than it would be if the train just went through. Because every town from what I understand, every town that the tracks go through has an MBTA assessment. Am I correct?
Every town in the district, whether a train goes through it or not, has an
Right,
MBTA
okay.
assessment.
However, if there is a station, that's a higher assessment.
Not necessarily. That actually is not true, unfortunately.
That's not true?
Speaking only for myself, I believe that should be true. But that's not definitely true, no.
So that's not true? Oh, okay. Does, if a station is to be sited in an area, does, like the town meeting, in our case it would be town meeting, do they have a say, a yes or a no, in whether or not they want a station sited in the town? Because I was under the impression where a station meant a higher assessment, then actually the town has an option to go in, as we exercised years ago by opting not to have a station.
Right, and I think there are two answers. The first answer is the state is not bound by local zoning or local decisions in that way. However, if the town of Foxborough overwhelmingly doesn't want a train station, that means a lot to us, and it doesn't necessarily mean that we would, you don't necessarily have a veto, but we care what you think, and we're not in the business of shoving our infrastructure down people's throats.
It's very expensive to do a station, and I understand that the MBTA is not flush with money. You're actually running in the red. Is there a law or something that says that the MBTA cannot establish any new stations or even any new lines as long as they continue to be in the red?
No, there have been proposals in the legislature about that, but they have not passed, no.
Okay, so is that something that the legislature would be interested in doing? Because, you know, we try to be fiscally responsible, you know, in town government. Even at home, you try to be fiscally responsible, and you don't spend money you don't have. And that's my question. Why would, I mean, if you're already in the red, why would you want to take on more burden of this when a satellite parking lot with a shuttle service to a train station would be a much cheaper option?
Right.
I'm just throwing that out there. Why?
Right, but as I said earlier, this actually, because it's an extension of an existing service, has no additional capital cost other than whatever fuel you burn to get down here and back, and has very little additional operating costs, and we believe it will be covered by the revenue generated by parking. I mean, there are lots of reasons why this might be a bad idea, but I don't think economically it doesn't make sense because it's going to plunge us much deeper into the red.
What about when you try to get the new trains and then you have the proposal for the
DMUs? This sort of mirrors the discussion I had earlier in November with the legislature, with the legislators, the delegation. The decision to buy DMUs is a capital decision that will cost capital dollars. Specifically, I think the estimate today is if we bought 30, it would cost us $280 million. That's a decision that people need to be involved in and take seriously and have a discussion about, because it is a capital expense that we believe pays enormous benefits, but it is a capital expense that the MBTA or MassDOT would have to bear, and it's a significant capital expense. But whether or not we buy DMUs is not necessarily dispositive of whether or not we would run commuter rail service to Foxborough. So you could make an argument that DMUs aren't justified and therefore we shouldn't buy them. We could still extend commuter rail. The commuter rail service to Foxborough, the DMU service to Foxborough are two separate issues. I just want everybody to know all the facts, which is why we talk about DMU when we talk about this, because ultimately if we go to DMUs will come to the Fairmont line, and if the Fairmont line comes to Foxborough, DMUs will come to Foxborough. But we wouldn't buy DMUs specifically because we've decided to extend commuter rail to Foxborough.
Okay, I just have one more. Can I just in the Mass DOT report, the board minutes that I referenced earlier from June 18th, 2014, on the last page, which is page 17 of the report, it lists in quotes, documents relied on in meeting. The last line of that list says, and I quote, staff summaries on items 8 to 14. From my calculation, the agenda item in regard to the train station in Foxborough was agenda number 12. And I would like to know if we could have a copy of the staff summary notes for agenda number 12, or whatever applies to the Foxborough train station.
Absolutely.
Could you please send that to?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. It is a public record. I'm surprised it's not posted on our website, but we will, even if it is, we will find it and send it to you, absolutely.
Okay, and any other information? Because we did get the report from, the minutes from June 18th, you know,
Yeah, and
so if there's anything else that we just don't know the dates of, or...
Right, and I think I first need to apologize for how this went, because my understanding is when you first submitted your FOIA, our response was we have no minutes on that. That was a problem with people misreading what you were asking, because I think what you asked about was extending commuter rail to Foxborough. The vote was actually on the Framingham secondary. Now, they're related, and we should have known, and so we apologize for not sending them right away. Similarly, I think that had the FOIA requests come through my office, we probably would have sent you the LOI, because I think clearly you shouldn't have to ask individually, we want this, this, and this, because some of the things you're asking for you don't know exist.
Right.
So we will send you both the staff summary and the LOI, because they're both public records, and everybody here has a right to see them.
Well, can we even broaden that to do anything that has
Oh, yeah.
to do with this train station? I mean, I'm
Off
relying
the
on
top
you,
of my
on
head,
your
Off the top of
office.
my head, those are the only two things we have, okay? Because we don't generally take notes in a lot of our meetings, particularly in our negotiation meetings. And as the MOU is still in a negotiation, it's actually not a public record yet. If and when we ever decide to execute it, it will become a public record. But I can send you anything that's a public record that relates to this, and that will certainly include the LOI, and it will certainly include the staff summary. And if we have anything else, I will personally take responsibility for the fact that you deserve it and should get it.
So
I
you-
just don't know that we have anything else.
So you already have, you took a vote to spend the $23 million in purchasing
The board of directors took a vote,
the
yes.
Framingham secondary line. So that's a done deal. You're going
Right.
to do that. So what other MOU were you just speaking to?
Right, so as I mentioned at the beginning, we have a letter of intent between us and the Kraft Group. It got, I believe, sometime in March, it got executed. So it's a fully executed document. It is therefore a public record, okay? I can send it to you, I should send it to you, I will send it to you. We are also currently negotiating an MOU with the Kraft Group, that if we decide to do this, we would execute, and it would be the binding agreement that says they're going to do the parking commitment they've sort of committed to, and they're going to find 5 plus or minus acres for us to possibly have a labor facility, if indeed we ever decide we want to have a labor facility. It also has commitments about train service, you know, during the peak and during the off-peak. It's under negotiation. It's not a document that is a public record. It's not something that's binding anybody. If indeed we ever got to the point where we had that document signed, it would become a public record, and I would give it to everybody.
The idea of putting a facility down there, is that something that, even though it's on Kraft property, is that something that would have to go through the Foxborough Planning Board with site plan review and all that?
Okay, so my understanding, and again, while I am an attorney, I'm not an attorney who does anything like this. My understanding is that the MBTA and MassDOT are exempt from those local laws. And so the answer is it would not be required to.
So they would,
That's my understanding. If I am wrong, somebody will correct me after the fact and get back to you, but that's my understanding.
so they would be purchasing that property? Is that correct?
Well, there's currently a commuter rail platform station there already. So first off, we aren't proposing to make any changes to that platform and that station. So
No, we could be purchasing the parking area and the layover section.
we would not be purchasing the parking area, okay? So, but it is, you know, I don't know what your laws are about parking. I heard the interesting discussion you had before I sat down about so many people parking that don't have permits for parking. So we would not purchase that. We would not purchase, but we would be ceded the fee simple in the 5 plus or minus acres.
So the 500 proposed parking spaces that would be designated for commuter rail parking, that would be taken out of the stadium parking?
They exist today.
Right,
Yes.
okay,
Yes.
but they would, I mean, I'm pretty sure that there are parking, the planning board has parking regulations that say you need so many parking spaces for, so this would be taking 500 spaces out of that mix. And with Gillette Stadium, where would they find the replacement 500?
So those 500 spaces are, again, during commuter rail commute hours. Okay, so it's not during stadium games Sundays, stadium games Saturday, stadium games evenings. It's not during concerts in the evening. It's during the 2 trains in the AM peak and 2 trains in the evening peak, and during the midday. So those.
But they have events during the week. During the summer, they have concerts during the week. And if you designate those parking spaces for commuter rail parking, then that takes away the 500 spaces that they have for event parking. Has that been figured out?
In fairness to David, I'm not sure he can answer that question. I think that's a question better proposed to the owners of the property.
Okay.
I would think that, and to our zoning board or our planning board to address that.
I just want to get back to the process real quick. So the need was determined completely independently of any input from the towns of Foxborough and Walpole, and completely independent of input from the craft organization. Once that need was determined, you then approached the craft organization to negotiate the use of their land. Is that true?
Well, so first, I don't know if the first part of your statement is true, because again, I wasn't involved in those studies, so I don't know what, if any, information was provided or input was sought from citizens in Walpole, Foxborough, or from the craft group. So I actually can't answer, I can't say yes to the first part of your question. I can say that yes, to the second part of your question. MassDOT determined that there was a need, based on those studies and our own assessment of our commuter rail system and parking and all those issues, that there was a need to extend commuter rail to Foxborough if it could be done at a reasonable cost. We then engaged the craft group in those discussions.
You engaged the craft group in those discussions when you were trying to determine the need?
No. When we were talking about, we believe there is a need here, we want to talk about possibly doing this, you own all the property that
Okay,
would be
that's what I said. That's
yes.
what I said in the
yes,
first
so the
place.
second part of your statement is certainly true.
Yeah.
The first part about who knew what or was involved in the first studies of determining the need.
Well, that was my first question about a half an hour ago, was how was the need determined?
Right.
And who was involved in determining the need? And I don't think I've got an answer to that.
Right, and my answer is it was an HED study, and I don't know what kind of public generally speaking, HED, I know what they do, and I know how they do it, and they do it well. And generally speaking, they don't
Can we get a
do
copy
things
of
without.
that?
Oh, yes, certainly.
Can we get a copy of that study?
Yeah, certainly.
Thank you.
Yeah.
And are there any minutes of already deliberations by HED as they discussed this, and who was present in the discussions?
I wouldn't know. I don't work for them. I wouldn't know.
Okay.
Well, could you let Mr. Keegan know who he could contact to get that information? And my question is why the study was done with, I don't know if there's any input from the town of Foxborough, and my question is, why would the HED go to the craft organization before it came to the town to talk about need? Because I don't remember anybody coming to the town of Foxborough asking about need. I've been in town for a long time.
All right. Yes, so I will certainly find a contact person for you. I will also independently call them and reach out to them and see what they have, if they have anything. But I will get Bill a contact person.
I know that our finance director wanted to ask a question directly, but
I have a couple of questions.
go ahead,
if I
Bill.
can, before we go.
Yeah.
First of all, I think, unfortunately, and I feel almost like you're being put on the spot here a little bit, David, in terms of some of these questions, but my thought would be that, first, I think the MBTA should be present here for this discussion, as well as HED, if that's the case. It would be more helpful, I think, to the board to have that information. That aside, it's really important to understand, and I'm not sure you can answer this, I think this would probably, again, an MBTA type question, is what is the financial impact to us on the assessment by having a station in the town? And I know that you maybe not be in a position to answer that question, but that's something that we really would like to know. Because if that does affect us financially, we want to know that impact. and to see if there's a way that can be mitigated some way. The second thing that, if I could just indulge the board a few more things, is of course the concern about noise. That if those trains do operate, if they operate for the peak commuter times in the morning and in the afternoon, it'd be good to know what those times actually mean, and when would those trains be starting up in the morning, and when would they be impacting the folks that live in that area. The next thing is that if in fact this service would be provided, it's important to know that, as I heard you this evening rather, that the 650 is actually new customers. So these are not customers coming from any of the previous stations that have been identified, but these are new customers. So therefore, the potential has been identified, and it'd be good to know more specifically where that potential comes from, because I think that would be helpful for everyone to understand that. And if it could be just purely from the fact that this is a potential, once you place a station there, if you build it, they will come. And that's entirely possible. But I think, to some extent, I think people would like to know that.
Right, so if I could suggest, why don't you, Bill, as you guys, that sounds rude. Why don't you take the responsibility for developing the questions you feel like you haven't got answered, that you need answered?
Fair enough.
Send it to me, and I will take responsibility for getting you the answers.
I think that's fair.
Okay? And then obviously, if you have follow-up questions, I can come back down, or you can send me more emails, or however it works for everybody here to get whatever information you need to make whatever decision you feel is appropriate is what we want to do. So you figure out what questions need answers, send them to me, and I will get answers for you, and I will turn it around as quickly as I can.
I just want to state one thing additionally, just for the record, is that I've worked in a community most recently that had 3 train stations in it, so I understand the impacts of train service and local train service. I also understand the economic development potential of having those trains available as well, and that it's important to understand, that the community understand that and because a lot of times things get said without any real backup information, but I can tell you from experience, the 12 years experience of working in those communities, that the home values of those communities did not actually decrease because of train service. A lot of times that gets said, and unfortunately that's not true, based upon my personal experience in seeing that, because in many ways what happens is that the value actually does increase because of the potential for transportation in the region. Now, having said that, doesn't mean that there are folks that don't have concerns, and I think that has to be stated as well. And I can understand why, because there is something that's not occurring now that could be potentially occurring into the future. The CSX line that occurs now, as I understand, there's currently 4 trains that occur each day. Four freight trains, I believe, that occur along that line. And that train travels at a speed somewhere in around 10 to 15 miles an hour.
Yes.
If you could address for everyone here what the potential speed difference would be of a new service.
Yes, sure. So currently, as Bill said, the freight train operates probably about 10 miles an hour, maybe up to 15. Commuter rail operates at 40 miles an hour, or would operate at 40 miles an hour here on this track.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Well said, Bill. Thank you.
Mr. Moeller, you just said that you want us to give us enough information for the decision that we have to make. What decision do we have to make?
This decision you have to make is whether you, as the elected representative of Foxborough, think this is a good idea. Again, it's not a decision that's a veto, yes or no. But as I hope I said at the beginning, it's a decision we should have asked you about in the first, okay? That doesn't mean that we won't do what we believe is appropriate, but we won't do it without taking your advice into consideration, okay? We should have asked you a long time ago, and we didn't, and that's our fault.
Yeah, so it's not just the Board of Selectmen, it's also the input from the Planning Board, the Zoning Board of Appeals, the citizens of the town of Foxborough, going along with that master plan and stuff. So there are a lot of opinions that you have to gather before a final decision.
Right, absolutely. So obviously, I believe you're going to take public comment, and we will listen, but I did give out my email address, so anybody who feels like you want to go on the record as what you believe we need to know, please email me, let me know.
I just wanted to mention that when we first talked about this meeting this evening, we also talked about the idea that this was the opportunity for us to hear this, and that I believe we envision that we will have another meeting of this nature, hopefully once we have all of the information that we need, so that all of that complete information can be shared in a public hearing, and we can invite the entire town to attend in a larger venue to make sure that there's adequate space for everyone
Sure.
to hear all the complete information.
And if you want me back again, I'll come down again. And if Bill, based on the questions Bill sends me, we can also then determine who else should be my supporting team.
I think one basic piece of information that I'm looking for is, obviously, there were financial analysis performed that led up to the decision that it made sense to purchase that spur, and around specifically this, the operation of this line, which caused you to initiate the discussions with the craft organization. So I would imagine that that is not part of your MOU, that's just part of your routine financial analysis. And when we requested all the information on this topic and received one set of minutes, you know,
Right, that kind of information.
I don't understand
right,
that.
That kind of information should be in the staff summary. And again, you should not have received the minutes without receiving the staff summary. So again, that is nobody's fault but ours, and I'll take responsibility for it. That information should be in the staff summary. But while these two issues are related, again, we did not buy the Framingham secondary because it lets us extend commuter rail to Foxborough. But having bought the Framingham secondary allows us to extend commuter rail to Foxborough. If we ultimately, after all of our discussions and these meetings and the meeting with the people in Walpole, if we decide ultimately we're not going to extend commuter rail to Foxborough, we still fundamentally believe that buying the Framingham secondary was a good investment for MassDOT and the MBTA because of its strategic importance connecting 3 commuter rail lines.
Okay. So, you know, looking for that financial information, that analysis.
Mm-hmm.
Also, having read I believe it was a 2008 study, there was information in there that talked about during low times, not during the peak times, that there was consideration of using a shuttle bus to either the Sharon or the, I believe it was the Walpole areas. And so again, if there's any information that analysis was also performed at the same time to reevaluate that, because that was part of the original study, I appreciate getting that information. So the deed has not been executed yet? Is that what
On
you
the
said?
Framingham secondary?
Yeah.
No, it is, but that's only because of the normal work that lawyers are doing. It will be executed. My expectation is it will be executed probably by the end of the month, certainly by the end of the calendar year. That is the final step in the process before you get Surface Transportation Board approval. So anytime freight rail property changes hands, or I think any rail property, the STB, which is a federally mandated and constituted group, does a review to make sure that that is okay, that is appropriate and okay.
Where's the MBTA advisory board in the mix on this? And you're Mass DOT, correct?
Yes, I am.
Okay, so MBTA advisory board, what function does that have in station siting and stuff?
I don't believe they have any function in that. Their function is primarily, although certainly not exclusively, a budgetary review function and a budgetary approval function. So they review and vote on the MBTA budget.
So any revenue from ticket sales or anything that goes to, does not go to Mass DOT, it goes to the MBTA?
Yes.
And the MBTA advisory board would have jurisdiction over those fees?
Yeah, but the budget doesn't get down to that level of detail that they're voting on. So
it's money coming in.
Yeah, but so as an example, again, my understanding of what the budget for the commuter rail is it is a single line item that says, here's the cost, here's the revenue, here's the other money we're putting into the budget to fill the gap. I don't believe you will find in the budget an individual itemized line-by-line assessment.
And you had, just one more thing, I'm sorry. And you had said that the parking revenue from the 500 parking spaces would be shared by, the MBTA would not get the full parking fee.
Yeah, so what I said was the craft group will operate and maintain the parking lot. So, you know, I can't tell you how yet because those are still, we haven't determined that as part of our negotiations. But ultimately, the craft group will collect the fees for the $500, 500 parkers. Will maintain, you know, remove the snow, make sure it's clean, make sure that people are paying, do all of that. They will, from the revenue they collect, keep the cost of that part of the operation, so that it's a zero sum to them. They're not putting money, they're not paying money to let us park, to let us have a parking lot. We will recoup the rest. So whatever the net profit is, will go to the MBTA.
So basically, the MBTA gets ticket sales from the train station
And the net profits of the.
and a portion of the parking revenue.
Yes, and there is a part of the negotiations also are possibly envisioning the craft group taking on responsibility for maintaining the commuter rail station that exists today, the platform, clearing the snow, keeping it clean, picking up the litter. I don't have an estimate off the top of my head of what that relieves the MBTA from, because again, it's not really a commuter rail platform, it's an event platform. But there is some amount of money we spend today to do those kind of things that we won't spend, and more importantly, we won't take on any additional responsibility to spend money because commuter rail service is coming.
Okay.
A question on the strategic importance of this line. Even if you weren't going to put a station in Foxborough or commuter rail service in Foxborough, you still said that there was a strategic importance to spending $23 million on that line. Can you tell us what that strategic importance is and why it's worth that kind of money?
Yes, and again, I will yield somewhat to the commuter rail guys who are more expertise on this.
I'll speak up on the
you can take this one? Good.
I'll take on the transportation.
I'll see if I was
side of
right.
it.
I'll listen and see if I was right.
To have a lot, we've had, over the past 10, 12 years, we've had at least 2 derailments at Canton Junction, which shut down the northeast corridor and service to the Stoughton branch and points south of Canton Junction. And we could not get our trains around it. We had to bus until the derailment was finished. Had we had the ability to come over this line, we could have made a loop, as we can do on our north side of the railroad with some of the lines that Pan Am owns. But CSX would not let us, in many cases, go across this line to move our trains under those circumstances. So I can't tell you that we'd use it every day, but when something happens and we get a portion of the line shut down, to be able to come from the Worcester, with this line here, to come from the Worcester line to the Franklin line to the main line on the northeast corridor, is huge, not only for us, but it could be for Amtrak as well. We lost the BU Bridge a year and a half, 2 years ago. And we had to go onto the north side, all the way up to Air, to Worcester, and down the Worcester line to get back into Boston to shuttle our equipment. The same could be said to get over to the northeast corridor, whether it's for us or for Amtrak, to connect service for the people in Mansfield, Sharon, and points south. So operationally, for us to own it and control it is huge. As I say, it's a tool in the toolbox, but if you don't have it and you need it, you're lost without it. And we've been lost a couple of times because CSX owned it and wouldn't let us across it. We can improve it to up the speed, and if we ever ran commuter rail service out here, the section of track that we run the commuter rail service on will be upgraded with ties, welded rail. It won't be the clickety-clack that we have today that runs the freight trains and the event trains. Additionally, we would like to, and we've asked CSX before, and have had inquiries out of the Worcester area, can we run a football train? Can we run an event train? We can't, because, quite frankly, today, CSX owns it. We will be able to do that in the future. Whether we run commuter rail service or not, we can run additional event trains. So for a transportation guy, this is a very strategic. This loops our south side to the northeast corridor to the north side.
So then it's a natural that the extension will go through Foxborough to the Mansfield station, because that's the only way you complete the loop.
Yes, that's the corridor. We will buy that entire corridor.
Yes.
And that is the connection that Steve has talked about being strategic, because it connects 3 lines. But we have no intention, plan,
I believe
discussion about ever extending commuter rail from what we identify as the Foxborough terminal down to Mansfield.
But you'll upgrade that section
But that's-
of the line.
We'll upgrade, I'm
Yes,
sorry.
we will own that section of the line.
You
We
will
won't-
own and upgrade that section of,
Yes,
that
but we
section of
won't
the line to
operate,
Mansfield.
we won't operate on it unless there's if there was a need to get trains from the Attleboro Northeast Corridor, as Steve just talked about, yes, of course, they would run on that line from Mansfield up.
As the freights do today, and as we bring our football train from Providence, or from T.F. Green, it comes in through that end
Right, and
today.
that also passes quite a number of streets through, it cuts across quite a number of streets in Foxborough. Mechanic Street, and all that stuff. And because when the CSX train goes through, all traffic stops until the train goes through. It goes through very slowly. On game days, when the train comes up from Mansfield, all traffic stops through Foxborough because it cuts across so many trains. So you'll be upgrading that line from Foxborough Station to Mansfield. You will be upgrading.
Initially, if
Not
we-
initially, but you will be eventually upgrading it.
We'll be maintaining it, and in many cases, we maintain to a little bit higher standard than what CSX maintains today, because they own the line and they maintain it to what they need for freight.
Right.
I can just
So-
tell you, not from an engineering perspective, I just know as a transportation person, we maintain a little bit higher. We would go out there, we would look at the ties, and we would certainly maintain it to a
Right, but
a
you'll
level.
maintain so that it can be used.
Yeah, as
Yeah.
it's used today. And obviously, if we were to run the commuter rail service, that portion between Walpole and Foxborough initially would be upgraded to accommodate the speeds and the safe operation of our trains in a commuter rail mode, not in a event Patriots train mode to get to the stadium, absolutely.
Madam Chair, if I ask the question a different way, if that line is going to be used, would only be used as a relief valve in the event that there was a problem on the Northeast Corridor line? Is that fair to say that?
For commuter rail, yes.
Okay.
Or on the Franklin
Or
line.
an emergency,
Yes.
for emergency consideration?
Yes, and so that would not,
It's not
we would
planned
not
to be used.
necessarily upgrade the line to 40-mile-an-hour speed just because it's a strategic asset that connects these lines.
But it's not planned to be used on a regular basis?
No.
But it could be potentially used on an emergency or relief basis?
That's correct.
Yes.
And it
Or
is-
eventually on a regular basis.
Potentially.
Yes.
Potentially, yeah.
Okay,
Down to Foxborough.
thank you. I just wanted to give Randy the opportunity to ask your question. Do you want to come up to the microphone?
Yeah, that's the only one we have, Randy.
The town manager, he asked.
Randy, can you put the microphone up to
it- It's on.
Yeah, we can hear you, they can't.
Great. The town manager asked a question about the assessment, and I,
Here, take one of these.
I think they're turning on.
take 3. The town manager asked a question about the MBTA assessment to the community, and it's my understanding that you're not prepared to answer how we would be assessed at this point in time. But I just wanted to offer up, what I do know about the assessment at this point in time. We're currently assessed about $116,000 a year. About 9 years ago, it was nothing because we don't have a station, but then the rules changed as far as the assessment went, that even communities without a station but were served with surrounding communities that would be assessed. So again, for Foxborough, it's $116,000 today. I read in the cherry sheet manual how the formula is supposed to work. It doesn't seem to be working according to what's explained in the manual. And to make the point, so Foxborough, with a population of about 17,000, we get assessed $116,000. Norfolk, our neighbor, has a population about half the size of Foxborough's. They have one station, and they are assessed an MBTA assessment about 3 times what Foxborough pays. So that's what's concerning to me. So it would be very important to understand exactly how an assessment would work for Foxborough, when the train, when the station does come to the town. Another concern that I do have is one of the great benefits that we get from being assessed the MBTA assessment is that we get to redirect all of those dollars towards our, I guess, what's called paratransit services, and we currently use GATRA in Foxborough. So we do use that extensively, as Selectman Coppola talked about the lot that we have, where our Foxborough commuters go to the Mansfield station. It's about a half-mile away, and they use the GATRA service for that, for all of the main trains that come and go out of that station. So my question would be, would there be any change to the town's ability to repurpose what is currently 100% of our MBTA assessment to the paratransit services, should our assessment change in any way, shape, or form?
Right, so I will give you what I believe to be the correct answer based on what I know happens at other RTAs, but then when Bill sends me that question, I will, if need be, correct myself. The Metro West RTA currently gets the assessments from several Metro West communities, most of which have commuter rail stations. So I believe the answer is it would not impact or limit your ability to still take your assessment and give it to GATRA. But I will confirm that in writing, and if I'm wrong, I'll correct myself in writing.
All right. I'd like to open this up to the public for questions. I know you had asked.
My name is Jim Oliver.
Let's bring you a microphone.
Is there a hand?
Yeah, I'm sorry. My name is Jim Oliver from Foxborough, and I have a few questions for Mr. Mueller or Steve Smith, Jones, I'm sorry. And the first one is, with a new administration coming in January, will that have any effect besides on jobs?
I think I'll take this one. The answer is if we ultimately executed an MOU before December 31st, there would be some impetus and some contractual rights related to the MOU. So I don't want to say the answer is definitely yes, they will have impact, but of course they will. The governor and the administration always have impact, and on the issue, for instance, of the DMUs, it's a capital expense that will happen during the next administration, if it happens at all.
Thank you. And also, the platform at Gillette Stadium, I haven't seen it for 4 years, but it's terrible. I hope if you do get the trains that it becomes a little more accessible, and whether you people do it or the craft organization does it, somebody's going to have to. And is there going to be an environmental impact study?
I don't believe this would trigger any thresholds that would require an impact study under MIPA, so I don't believe there would be, no, because this is the institution, we're not building anything, we're not generating significant traffic, and it is an existing station, so I don't believe it will trigger any MIPA, so I don't believe there will be.
My last question for you is, how many signals are going to have to be changed?
I'll take that.
Okay.
Steve will take that one.
I'll take that one. If we were to run commuter service up to Foxborough, we'd have to modify the current interlocking at Walpole so that we could take that switch and what we refer to as the Lewis Y. We use it today to come off our Franklin branch to go to the stadium, but we would power it up. It wouldn't be hand-operated as it is today for event trains, so we would have to modify the interlocking, a relatively small cost for that, and we would have to put some signals in the Foxborough station area to complete the block, if you will, so that the signals talk to one another between Walpole and Foxborough so that you can't have any conflicting moves. Today, that line that's out there today is not signaled, and it's all run by rules and regulations, but done by paper, if you will, in a very old manner and way that we ran trains previously. But that's because of the speeds and the inactivity there. But under commuter rail, we would complete the signal system between Foxborough, at the very least, and Walpole, so that you had that safety consistency between the two locations.
All right. Well, I'm sorry, one last question. Sorry for my voice. You said you were going to possibly use self-propelled trains. Would it be 1, 2, or 3 self-propelled trains? I mean, tied up.
Right, so that is still being determined. They will either be, so the way this works is there is no locomotive separate from the passenger car. So it's like a sort of like a Green Line car in that the locomotive, the power is in the same car as the people.
Yeah.
Okay, so it will either operate in a set of 2. So there's a power system at both ends going shuttling back and forth, or a set of 3 with a consist in the middle that has no power. I think right now, if you were to ask, long-term, given the growth of ridership we project for commuter rail / DMU, our leaning is that we would operate them in consists of 3. But that's not definitely been determined yet.
Because when I was growing up in Medway, in the 40s and 50s, we had a self-propelled.
Yeah, the Bud car. It will look like the Bud car. It'll be the Bud car.
Some information for the Board of Selectmen. There were 2 studies done on this railroad. One by the MBTA on 9/1/2010, and one by the Southwest 495 on 9/9 in 10. And your town planner has copies of both. And there was a meeting at Town Hall at the 495 one.
Yes, correct. That was the Myrick O'Connell study.
You're welcome.
Thank you. Gentlemen in the blue jackets, would you like to come up?
So, probably makes sense for them to take that one.
Yeah.
Keep this one here for people who come up this side.
Bill Hamilton, South Walpole.
Actually, Mr. Hamilton, I wanted to give Foxborough residents
First, okay.
an opportunity first, if you don't mind, and then I'll have you back up. Thank you. Are there any Foxborough residents who'd like to speak? Please come forward.
Check back here, like you did. Stephanie McGowan, 19 Wilkes Lane, here in Foxborough. I've been a resident here for 16 and a half years. My husband grew up here in town. I actually grew up in Stoughton, where the commuter rail had been there since I was 5 years old. At one point, the train went right behind our development. A couple of times a day, you would hear the train. There was fences and stuff. At some point, they cut it off, and it actually stopped right in the center of town. I think originally it continued down to Taunton or Easton down that way. I just want to let you know, even though you haven't had residents come to you and complain that the train doesn't stop in Foxborough, I don't think that's something any of us thought we could do. If the train doesn't come here, it doesn't come here. I think you'd be surprised at the amount of people that would use that train. I don't commute into Boston on a daily basis. There are plenty of people who do. That ride into Boston is awful, okay? When we do have to take the train, we will go to Sharon or Mansfield. It's very hard to get parking there. My husband has a handicap placard. They're very little, if you're not there early in the morning, you don't get a spot. Where that parking is, it's a long walk. If it's a beautiful day, you can walk there. If it's raining or it's snowing or cold, it's not convenient to park in those places unless you're there very early in the morning, or if you're going later when people have already commuted back and spaces open up. So I wouldn't say just because people haven't come to you and complained, that means there isn't a need for it here. With that being said, I would be thrilled to be able to come up here and be able to, when you go into Foxborough, into Boston, to go to Red Sox games, go to the Bruins games, things like that. I mean, I'm not someone who would commute on a daily basis, but it does make it convenient. With that being said, I don't say we just let the train come, but I think before we sit back and just say, oh, we don't want the commuter rail or a station in Foxborough, we really need to find out all the information, what it will do economically, what it'll do environmentally. As time goes on, these trains are made much quieter. You know, we used to hear the train from where I lived when I was a kid. It wasn't that bad, but we could hear it. Nowadays, these trains are, you know, they're just different. As technology goes on, they get better. So just because you don't think there's a need, I think this is something that we really need to consider and, you know, and do all the homework and find out, not just because at one point the town didn't want it, to say that we don't want it now. And I just think it would be a great opportunity, and if we do all our homework. And the other thing, the one vibe I'm getting from sitting here is, and it does kind of sting to think that something was going on and you didn't know about it, but, you know, whether if they're at fault that they didn't come to the town first or not, doesn't mean that we should be upset and just say, poo-poo, we don't want it here. The vibe I'm getting that maybe you guys are a little upset that you didn't come before you first, and maybe if I was sitting in your shoes, I would feel the same way, but don't let that make you, you know, look at the bigger picture other than having your noses bent out of shape that it didn't come to you first. Let's find out what it would mean for the town, and then we'll go from there.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Next part.
Hello, my name is Kathy Longley, and I live on Tucker Lane here in Foxborough. I was here 3 years ago when the MBTA or whomever spoke to us about the train, and there was a large contingent of people who were not happy with this development. We felt it was very much driven by the craft organization. We were not really interested in bringing it to our community, mostly because of the noise and the fuel emissions. And we've spent a lot of time tonight talking about a lot of things, but for those of us that live over in that side of town, those of us that are going to hear that train, those of us that already deal with all of the traffic, whether it's game day, we, I think, need a much better explanation of diesel, how it's going to smell, how it's going to sound. My understanding is one of our elected officials went to Newton, to one of the neighborhoods that is affected by trains that idle, and they are horrified by this. They don't like it. It has really affected their quality of life, and I don't want that to happen here. The other thing is you referenced reports about, 600, 800 spots in you know, us being in a situation where we need a lot more spots. And I guess I'd like to ask, is that a new study, or is that the same data we're going on from 2011, when we very clearly told Mr. Merrick that we did not want it in our town? And now with the Patrick administration, going by the wayside, here we are at the 11th hour trying to get this somehow, circumvented and put in our town. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm Janet Sullivan Kennedy I live on Cocasset Street. I'm originally from Boston, where we have transportation. And I lived in South Attleboro, and I was able to take the train from the South Attleboro train station when I worked in Boston. I think it would be a wonderful idea, because a lot of people would like to go into Boston. And for an example, my husband had open heart surgery, and we had to go into Boston Medical. We went to Mansfield. There was no parking. Luckily, we went down to Sharon, and I was able to get a space. And it's convenient more to go up to the stadium because there's ample parking up there. And as Mrs. McGowan said, it would be wonderful. People from Boston who don't want to drive 95 could come to Patriots Place to go shopping, or go to the restaurants, and it would be a win-win for everybody.
Okay. Thank you.
Hello, I'm Mike Stewart from 44 Neponset Heights Avenue. I appreciate your time. As we keep talking, I'm trying to keep my head wrapped around this whole issue. The way I have the 2 pages of notes, I come out with, study was done, need was determined. Private landowners were contacted because that is the next step that they would use to try to open up the corridor. Avenues for discussion are established and will be addressed for future questions at future meetings. So all these questions that have been repeated and repeated and repeated, hopefully we can get asked and addressed one time. It's not a capital budget expense now, and we need more information for the consideration, and repeat the same questions and not allowing these people to bring it up and settle those issues is not going to make it go any better. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other Foxborough residents who'd like to comment? As a resident? As the town planner?
My name is Sharon Wasson. I'm the town planner. I'm also the MBTA Advisory Board representative for the town of Foxborough. I previously served on the MBTA Advisory Board for the town of Walpole for many, many years. And my concern is, as Walpole representative, we were always told that additional service on the Franklin line was not possible due to a single track between just south of the Norwood Central line up until almost the Norfolk line. There's only one train track on the system at that point. And I'm concerned how they're going to thread the Fairmont line back through the Franklin service and not have issues with that. And is that part of the reason that there's only 2 morning trains, 2 afternoon trains, and a midday train?
As far as threading the express trains out of Foxborough through to Reedville, part of the reason to not stop them, obviously, is because of the single track. And we would adjust schedules, tweak them, whatever, to make sure that we could get the inbound out of Foxborough over that single track to Norwood Central, back onto the double track, without affecting. Yes, so that it wouldn't conflict. And with regard to the 2 initial, what we talk about when we talk about the 2 inbounds in the morning, the 1 in the midday and 2 back at night, is much to determine the need or the demand for the ridership and the service. I believe, as a for the transportation guy taking care of this area and familiar with it, as long as we keep the express service out of Foxborough and get it over the track to the double track and to Reedville, that we can thread that through. We have a lot of single track throughout our system, not only here in the Franklin branch, but the old colony lines, et cetera. I won't go through all that, but there is a lot of single track. It is tricky. It leads to delays when something breaks down there, and but yeah, we could do it, is the answer to your question. Trains, the schedule, some would have to be tweaked a little bit, but not eliminated or severely impacted.
Thank you.
Can I just ask a question? Sharon, did you say you were I believe we appointed you to the MBTA Advisory Board?
Yes, I'm the town's
Were you
representative.
aware of this plan?
I was not.
So the MBTA Advisory Board is not?
As Mr. Moeller pointed out, the MBTA Advisory Board functions like the AdCom, and just examines the budgets. There is a commuter rail subcommittee that I served on for many years that made recommendations to the MBTA about system improvements and service, but that was over and above what their primary function is, to look at and recommend approval of the budget.
Okay, thanks.
Thank you. Steve? Yes, that's fine.
Thank you. Steve Uden, 21 Carmine Ave. Thank you to the folks that came tonight, and welcome to Foxborough. I have a concern. I'm not quite clear on the long-term vision of this whole project, and that could be my fault. But I think one of the things that hasn't been said is, and it may be a public safety issue for Foxborough to deal with, is if we have 2 in the morning, 2 in the afternoon, and 1 in the afternoon, and that is to be some kind of contractual schedule for a long period of time. We have 2 businesses here in the area that service a lot of nightlife, and I'm a big drunk driving safety bug, and I don't see where the benefit would be to people later in the evening coming here, enjoying themselves, wanting to do all the right things, and possibly take the MBTA home for their own safety and that of the public. The other thing is that I don't see any discussion on the now Racino up the street, which would only be, I don't think it's that far a reach to think that some people would take the available trains and frankly walk up Route 1, day, night, whenever, to get to that destination, and possibly find out the hard way that, oh, they don't run a train at 10 o'clock at night. I've been there enjoying myself, participating in the economic development of that organization, whatever. I'm a little confused. I think Stephanie and Mike said some very good things about what the board's planning here is getting more information and getting a long-term vision for where this affects us. And I look forward to seeing more of that information come forward. Thank you.
Thank you, Steve.
So I will just clarify. The beginning commitment is that there would be at least 2 a.m. and 2 p.m. peak period trains and 1 midday. If service justified it, then that level of service could and would increase. But we're not planning anything more than 2 in the morning, 2 in the afternoon, and 1 in the middle.
Representative Barrows.
Thank you.
Representative, how are you?
Good. Sorry, this is my first time to say hello. I missed the meeting in Boston because I had a previous commitment that came up before the other one. So here we are tonight. I just urge caution. We have a $325 million budget deficit that we have been banning around the last couple of weeks with the outgoing governor. We could be facing some local aid cuts. We could be facing some 9C cuts. We don't know where it's going to take place, but we assume that something's going to happen. We also defeated the gas tax indexing, which was going to go help Mass DOT fund transportation projects. And I'm not sure if I heard clearly, but it sounded like there is somewhat of a move to get the purchase of the line done before the end of the year. I think you said that, because there could be some concern with what the new administration might say, and maybe you can clarify that. And I won't put words in your mouth, but hold for 1 second. To spend $23 million on the line that may or may not be used for additional commuter rail traffic. Over the course of 25 years, that's going to cost over $1 million just for the line, for the purchase. And I have no idea what, and I haven't read any studies as to what the upgrades to those tracks would be if it went on to provide a higher speed rail service. So a couple of those things. So I really, and again, you admitted immediately, and I thank you for that, to say we kind of messed up. We had maybe the cart before the horse. We're a community here that likes to know. Sometimes they want to know too much. Never too much. But again, very interested in what goes on here. I don't think there's anybody in this room that is against future economic development along the Route 1 corridor, and we want to all work together, and we've invested in a master plan. We've got a very robust planning board and a very involved Board of Selectmen and community as a whole. So we want to know. And so if we can find all that out and again, with some caution, I'm sure we'll be able to figure out a way. So thank you.
Thank you, Representative.
Thank you.
And so I certainly did not mean to imply that we are rushing through the Framingham secondary purchase prior to the end of the administration. It has been on a schedule since June. We got our authority to purchase it in June. We had a deal in principle in June. It's taken till now to get the lawyers to be done. It's not being rushed through. And as I said, it is not, the purpose for that purchase is not exclusively or even primarily adding commuter rail to Foxborough. We believe that that purchase makes strategic sense in the long term for MassDOT and the MBTA. So we are not rushing it through. And as the representative noted, there is the people repealed the indexing of the gas tax. That will have an impact on our capital budget. That will be an impact that the incoming administration will have to address. And that will mean that some of the things we plan to do today, we probably won't be able to afford to do. Whether that includes any of this project, nobody knows today. Whether that includes DMUs, nobody knows today. But certainly there will be things today that we plan to do that we may have to cut because you can't spend money you don't have.
Thank you. I'd like to invite the Walpole Board of Selectmen members if they'd like to make a comment. Hi. You could just state your names, please.
Nancy McKenzie, Walpole Selectmen.
And Christopher Timpson, Walpole Board of Selectmen. Thanks for having us here and giving us notice of what was going on.
Yes, we'd like to thank you a lot for filling us in and thank the people in Foxborough for allowing us to speak at their meeting. We have a few things that are concerning us. One, first, we're very happy that you're coming to us December 5th. But I know it's been stated before, but June and then December 5th is going to be the first time that you're going to be in Walpole. Chris and I were both actually on the board when the past study was done. And at that time, our board, responded to the study. And in the study, it had stated that it really was not financially feasible to be running the track through Walpole. And then, we supported the fact that it wasn't feasible and that we weren't interested at that time. And now, all of a sudden, we are getting notice in the end of, halfway through November that there's a sale going on, and you're going to come see us December 5th, and you want to have the purchase and sale signed before the end of the year. I mean, there's a lot of things that they don't smell very good in the room. And if you look at that rail, it's coming through Walpole. What is it going to do to our assessment already? I mean, that you're going to have to upgrade that track. That's the track that is the clink-clank that goes through town. And there has never been a time that Walpole has expressed interest. The annex parking lot that was built is actually very close to the line, so it's not really a satellite. It's not far away. It's actually right at walking distance. It's right at the station. And it's very nicely on the Medfield side. So if there are Medfield people looking to park, they could make it even easier. They can park on that side, and Walpole has parking, and our parking is not full. It has not been full, and we, too, have not had anyone come saying, we're looking for increased service. I mean, this is a large project, and that amount of money is only to purchase the rail, and it's not including the upgrades? Is that correct? It's not including the cost of the upgrade of the track that goes from Walpole Center to Foxborough, that right now is still a hand turn when the games are happening? I mean, it doesn't make any sense. And you've referenced that you're going to increase, there's a potential for 500 people. And if this is a study that is based on housing and economic development, is there a plan for increased housing? is there a housing component that has been looked at? Is someone or anyone talking about adding housing to the local area?
You'd have to actually ask these people.
We don't know.
We're not aware.
You're not
privy.
aware?
We're not
So
privy
I'm
to-
just wondering from the transportation planning, is there a housing component that could possibly be fitting in somewhere maybe on the Kraft property? I know that the property across Route 1 that backs up to Walpole, that Mr. Kraft did purchase a piece of land that will connect the back of his property onto one of our roads. And it is enough of an access that would be possibly an emergency egress, so that he just doesn't have his frontage on Route 1. So to me, then, it would look like that could be a perfect place for some sort of housing component. And when you're looking for housing components, you're looking for transportation, when you're looking for the big picture.
I have no idea whether Mr. Kraft's doing whatever he's doing. My understanding of this 600 figure, which came from before, was a combination of new riders and some that may come from a Mansfield or a Sharon, or even maybe a Walpole, but if they have happy with parking and everything. But that's, I don't know anything about new housing, so.
Okay, so
I don't know how to answer that.
to me, if some of these riders are coming from already other train stations, then they're actually not new riders.
Well, I believe some of them were coming from the Sharon and Mansfields, where we know that we're boarding some of the heaviest stations. It may be more convenient for them, and I understood that that's where some of those figures came from. Where the rest of them are, maybe they're new riders that are driving today, I don't know. But as far as housing is really what my point was. You're asking me about us about housing and is somebody planning it. I've heard none of that that I've heard. And I don't think these people have.
No. What I'm wondering is if there are maybe any specific additional information requests you wanted to put forward, so that as they come to your meeting,
Yeah, what would be great, and you have already expressed it too, if the commuter service, they could come to our meeting. If basically all the information that we need, maybe they could come to our meeting December 5th. We would love you to come to our meeting also. And instead of just repeating this meeting, maybe we could actually move forward a bit.
Okay.
Right, so I would like to suggest, if there are things that you would like us to be ready to discuss or answer, to the extent that you know them today, if you could send them to us so we can come with our prep ready, that would probably make for a more productive meeting. Obviously, that doesn't mean that there won't be things that come up that you didn't tell us and we should still try to answer and be able to answer. But to the extent you know specific issues you would like us to address, it would be helpful if you could let me know in advance so that we can make sure the right people are in the room to answer the questions you have.
Okay.
I could just, Chris Timpson again, pop off a couple of them. I'd like to see where the information about these new riders came from, how that was developed, when that was developed. Is that a real viable foundation? Because obviously we're skeptical about this in Walpole. You know that from our past interaction. I'm wondering whether CSX will still have a right to run its trains across the tracks where...
Yep, yes.
Okay.
Yes, they will.
And who's going to pay to upgrade the train tracks and the railroad crossings that you're going to need? Who pays that cost?
That would be MassDOT.
MassDOT, not the MBTA.
Not the MBTA. MassDOT is purchasing the rail. MassDOT will own the rail line.
Is there any estimate of that cost, or does that cost just not matter because it's MassDOT?
Well, of course it matters. And yes, there is an estimate. I did not bring it with me today. I should have, obviously. But we will bring it to the Walpole meeting and we'll send it to Bill.
Okay.
Thank you.
And I was also curious as to whether the defeat of the gas tax indexing would have some effect on this, because I know that that was essentially touted as a transportation funding mechanism. Is there any comment on that, or do you want to get back to us on that?
No, so the defeat of the gas tax index will have an impact on our capital budget. So, in a sense, anything that is not already committed is subject to being not funded. I believe that the purchase of the Framingham secondary is so far along in the process that it will likely be concluded before we do an assessment of the impact of that gas tax, the repeal of index. It's also, again, I wish we hadn't conflated so closely these two issues, because honestly, if we all decide tomorrow that it makes no economic or quality of life or transportation sense to bring commuter rail down to Foxborough, we still believe that the purchase of the Framingham secondary is a good investment of $23 million, even with the repeal of the gas tax.
A couple last points, and then we'll, because I don't want to, but was there any requirement or of notification to the communities that the Framingham secondary was located within, that this purchase was planned or in the offing? Because I know I've been on the Board of Selectmen for a number of years. I haven't heard anything about it until I saw these minute notes that were kindly forwarded to us by the Foxborough Selectmen.
Okay, so, and again, I will answer this question, and then if I end up being wrong, I will correct it. I believe that there is no requirement to notify the communities through which a rail line passes when that rail line is being sold to another rail line.
And lastly, I know that there was legislation passed with regard to giving notice to Walpole if there was going to be any line. Are you familiar with that legislation that was passed? I know it happened after the last.
Yeah, I'm not familiar with it. I probably should be. Well, certainly, since I'm here today, I should be, but no, I'm not.
You may want to look into that, just because I was very, very surprised when I heard about this after the fact, when I know that our delegation had some type of a law passed about specifically notifying Walpole if this type of thing was going to occur. And
right. Well,
you may want to be ready for that one.
Right. Well, and as I say, the fact that there's a law should not be what forced us to come to you. It is our fault, and I will take personal responsibility for it because I managed this process, that we didn't get out to you sooner. Whether there's a law or not, we should have come out sooner to the communities. There's nothing we can do other than apologize because we screwed up and we're here. But that's our fault, and we take it seriously.
I just want to say thank you again.
Thank you very much.
Chairman.
Mr. Murtaugh?
Yes. Thank you, Foxborough Board of Selectmen, for asking the tough questions tonight. You know, the MBTA is broke. And, you know, are we taking the taxpayer for suckers? You know, this $23 million, is the craft organization, did they pledge any of this money up front? You know, the $23 million for the upgrade of that rail?
No.
No. I'm dismayed at the process, because I'm telling you, these backroom deals at the stadium, you left the two main players out of it. The town of Foxborough and the town of Walpole. Where's the transparency here, will you tell me? You know? And I'm all for economic development, but I'm in the butter to the parking lot, Foxborough Stadium. I don't want more noise, more pollution. Are you going to have the whistles blowing on these trains?
Not any more than they may be today, as they go across the crossings, but no.
And another thing, Summer Street, our street there beside the post office, that's a cut-through. Rather than using Route 1, it's too busy now for them in the mornings. It's like a parking lot. If you have trains coming, it'd be out to 1A. There'd be traffic jams. That's it. Thank you very much for
Thank you. The gentleman in the blue coat, if you'd like to. And then I'd like to, unless there's Foxborough residents, I'd like to close it after this.
Okay. Thank you very much, Bill Hamilton from South Walpole. My questions are financial and safety. The financial questions are, if I remember right, 3 years ago, parking at Foxborough was going to be free.
No. This parking would charge the going rate that the MBTA charges.
Okay. Just to be quick, I'll try to get yes or no answers.
Okay.
Now, if it's not free, why would anyone think that you'd get 650 new people to park there? Now, I travel the MBTA a lot, and I choose my station by its schedule. Now, the schedule for Foxborough doesn't appear very attractive for me at this point. I mean, I can go to Norwood, I can go to Sharon, I can go to Walpole, I can go to 128, and I can pick up trains, and I can get back to my train. I don't want to go to a Red Sox game from Foxborough and have to take a taxi home. I mean, that would be not cost advantaging. Now, am I correct in assuming that you said that parking fees are playing a role in your financial planning for this?
Parking fees will help offset the cost, the added cost of operating this train.
Okay, I just wanted to make sure that I understood that clearly. Now, you said that you're going to upgrade the track system, and you're going to upgrade it to 40 miles an hour. Now, in past meetings, it's been said that that train will not travel greater than the freight train, which is 10 to 15 miles an hour. Now, let me explain why that's important to us. Have you been to the Summer Street site?
No.
Okay. Somerville Street, it's on a curve. So by the time the train driver sees gridlock or vehicles broken down on Summer Street, he can't stop. We've had 5 accidents of vehicles that were in gridlock or were disabled. And the train luckily was going 10 to 15 miles an hour. No one was seriously injured or killed. But the train cannot stop at 10 to 15 miles an hour. Now, I've seen and I've witnessed on the Patriots train a van with about 7 or 8 children in it going to soccer on a Sunday. And when that operator came around the curve, that van, now, you have to understand that the safety there is very, very poor. The chiming, the ringing of the bell is very low. A lot of people will tell me it doesn't even occur. I have heard it. I don't know if I hear it every time. But, and also, when the sun is at the right location, you can't see you cannot see the red lights blinking. So people are coming down, excuse me, they're not alert that there's a train coming. And I've seen it couldn't have been more than 7 or 8 feet. that vehicle with those children were almost wiped off the thing, because that train was a passenger train, and it was going a good clip. You're saying 40 miles an hour. I believe that was going a little bit better than that. It was a little quicker. Now, you said that you're going to observe all the federal regulations. Is that true?
Absolutely.
Okay. My understanding, and I've talked many times to CSX, and federal regulations do not require gates for the freight trains, but they do require gates for passenger trains, because there's more, you can have multi-casualty incidents with passenger trains. Now, are you going to comply with having gates at Summer Street and the other crossings?
Yeah, all the crossings will be upgraded. The rail and the ties will be upgraded. All the crossings will be outfitted with brand-new crossing gates and all the signal appliances that go with them. And not to debate any of it, but the freights need warning devices at crossings the same as passenger trains do, whether it's gates or crossbucks or lights, depending on what the operation is there. Regardless of that, we will replace all the crossing apparatus to the current quality that we use today.
Oh, okay, so now let me make sure I understand, because CSX told me that that was a line in decline, and it was way too much money for them to upgrade the gates. Now, you're saying that you're going to put in the necessary radar, which will tell when the train is coming by radar?
It's by track circuits that are positioned in accordance with the speed of the trains that trigger off the lights. There's a whole federal regulation that determines how soon the preemption must start and when the gates must be down in the full horizon. There's a whole...
Well, well, I mention this because we had a serious problem, and we did have gates. They were not up to the technology, but they did have trips on the tracks, and juveniles found out how to trip them. And they used to cause the gates to come down when there was no train coming. Now, are we going to get into that technology, or are you going to go to radar? Because CSX told me that radar defeats that. No one can trick that.
All I can do is assure you that the gates will be upgraded to the compliance with the FRA. They'll come out and they'll check them and certify them and so forth, and they'll be inspected as we do with all of our commuter rail in accordance with the federal regulations.
Now, the other thing that made it very expensive, and CSX was not interested in doing it, was because that the new system that they were looking at had 4 gates, and it would also measure if a vehicle was broken down or in gridlock within that intersection. And it would then send the stoplights in time for the train to stop.
Excuse me, sir. Excuse me. I appreciate your questions, but I need to really move the meeting forward. So
I appreciate it very much. Thank you. So now I'll have these answers on December, what was it? December 5th?
I think it's the 5th. I think it's the 5th.
Okay, I thought I heard the 2nd.
We're coming to your town. I think it's the 5th. I think I said the 2nd, and I think they corrected me.
Okay, thank you. Thank you for that.
Thank you very much. Are there any other Foxborough residents who would like to come to the microphone? All right. Foxborough resident?
Oh, it is the 2nd. The Walpole meeting is December the 2nd. Okay. So I'll see you in Walpole on December the 2nd.
I apologize to the other Walpole residents, but I'd appreciate if you could bring your questions to your meeting, and we will also participate there, too. Thank you. Back to the board. Any additional questions? Yes, Jay.
Just ask Paul from the 495 Partnership, who's come out tonight to speak.
Sure. Paul, come forward, please.
Is this the one that works?
Yes.
Yes. Thank you, Representative, and thank you, Board. I'm Paul Matthews. I'm the Executive Director of the 495 Metro West Partnership. We're a regional economic development nonprofit that was founded 11 years ago as a public-private organization to serve the region and advocate and support further state investment and policies that support the regional economy here in 495 Metro West. So that's who I am. Quick points, I will keep them very quick, relative to this discussion tonight. One is, to the best of my knowledge, there have been 3 separate dialogues in recent years involving the commuter rail issue. The first is the EOHED study that has been referenced. That's the Executive Office of Housing and Economic Development. The point person on that effort was April Anderson Lamoureux, who unfortunately is no longer with the office. However, like every other state agency, She has a successor, and I'm confident they'll be fine in terms of answering your questions and participating. The second was a regional development plan that the Executive Office of Housing and Economic Development took a lead role in, the 495 Metro West Development Compact. And that looked at priority development areas, priority preservation areas, and related infrastructure investments. So that was another dialogue with the town where this arose in the surrounding towns. The third is this privately funded effort by Myrick O'Connell to do a phase 2 study. When we became aware of that effort, we worked to bring Myrick O'Connell and Vanessa Heng and Bruslin, the technical firm providing the services, to the town, to the surrounding towns, and held a series of outreach meetings. So that was in 2011. Again, because that's a private firm, that is difficult to ask David any questions about that. The 2 points I'll add, and I'm happy to answer any questions if I can, are that, one, we've worked with David and MassDOT on other lines in this region and other issues, and rest assured if he says he'll be getting you answers, and you do have a lot of questions, I'm confident you will be getting answers. And lastly, I will just add the general observation. Our organization was founded 11 years ago between municipal officials and private employers and legislators with the belief that this region needed further state investment. We've seen that state investment paying off on the other commuter rail lines relative to the tax base, residential values, commercial and job growth, and services to residents. I do feel, professionally speaking, commuter rail service and improved commuter rail service to this region is a good thing. That being said, I certainly recognize there are very real questions about the process here today, and I completely understand the reason for your questions and concerns. So I'm happy to answer any questions.
Questions? Thank you very much.
Do you have a business card, sir?
Oh, absolutely.
So that you could give to Mr. Keegan?
I know.
You got it?
Yeah,
Oh,
I
okay.
Yeah, that'd be good. Thank
Actually,
you.
if anybody has business cards, if you can just leave them on the table, that would be good, so that we would have contact information. That would be good.
All right, so John and Ginny, I just wanted to, well, first, thank you so much for working to field our millions of questions. I don't believe that for a minute, but for fielding our questions. We will work with Bill to make sure we get all of those to you, and look forward to having another meeting, which we will publicize to the residents, and we'll probably have a larger forum. I did want to talk to the board members. One thing that does concern me is the comment that was made about executing the MOU with the craft organization prior to the end of the year. And given the change in governor, I would like to talk to the board about the thought of submitting a letter requesting, to Mr. Mueller, requesting that that MOU not be executed until all of our questions have been answered, and the public in both Foxborough and Walpole have the opportunity to digest that information and ask all their questions, and make sure that we can catch up to this process that has progressed so far down without that type of input. So respectfully, I'd like to ask John and Ginny what you think about that thought.
No, I agree. I would appreciate the opportunity to send a letter.
Okay.
And I agree with that too. And again, you self-admitted that you screwed up, and we've not been part of the process, and this at least gets us engaged in the process. So I think that's a good idea.
Okay. I want to thank you for answering our questions, and it was true. I think Representative Barrows said we do ask a lot of questions. That's what Foxborough people do, and Walpole people do too. So thank you for answering as best you can, and we will be sending in more questions.
Just a question, when will we see you again? Has that been scheduled at all?
So I'm going to Walpole, and if you guys work with Bill and let me know when you want us back.
Okay.
I would assume that he will send me questions, and I don't know whether you want to wait till you get some responses back to actually try to set a meeting, but I will leave that to you.
I think that would be good if we could get the responses. We don't have our full board here this evening, so, I think it'll be important for us to have a really robust discussion with the full board present. And then I would think following that type of discussion, then we'd be able to figure out a follow-up meeting.
Yeah, I mean,
So,
other than the normal, it's the holidays, I'll make myself available, so.
okay.
And could we invite the residents of Foxborough, who may be not at this meeting, but may be watching on television, if they have questions, concerns, if they can send them to the Foxborough Town Hall, and we will get them, and we will gladly use your input for questions to Mass DOT.
Also, our emails are available at the town hall. If anyone wants to email directly, please feel free to do that. So I was thinking that in terms of submitting this letter that, we should address it to Mr. Moeller, certainly CCing all of our representatives, the governor-elect, just requesting that this be put on hold for a second. Does that sound appropriate?
That sounds fine.
Yep.
Okay.
Madam Chair, just say a couple words. First of all, I want to thank David for being here tonight, and Mr. Jones as well for being here, and the rest of the members of the staff that are here this evening. This is a start of an important process. It's a decision-making process which the board, while I'm not sure you have a direct relevant decision relative, but it certainly is an important direction that they would like to hear from this board and from the town of Walpole, that whether this is an important service or not. And I think that the engaging of this dialogue is very important towards reaching that, and I appreciate everybody's patience and understanding of that. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thanks very much.
Thank you. So can I have that motion, please? You want me to make the motion?
Yeah, why don't you make it?
Okay.
I'll second.
I move that we submit a letter. I move that we submit a letter to Mr. Mueller and to all of the appropriate representatives, and including the government. Including the governor and the governor-elect, requesting that the MOU between the craft organization and the MBTA not be executed until such time as the towns involved have been engaged in adequate discussions.
And I'll second that.
Thank you. All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay. All right. Folks, do you mind, we just need to continue our meeting? Thank you.
Thanks.
Okay. Next item on the agenda is our Town Hall Working Group, the Town Hall update.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Just by way of summary, of course, the Town Hall Working Group is going to move into a next phase of its discussions. Primarily, just to sort of recap the work that it's been doing, but to initiate the contracts between, folks, if we could just, thank you. If you maybe step outside, it'd probably be better to have that conversation. Thank you. To have the town execute the contracts between the designer of the project as well as the overall owner's project manager, which would be very helpful to get us going and getting that process started. So I know that Mr. Euchner has been working on getting those details worked out. He'll be getting those contracts to me shortly, and we'll be engaged in getting that process going. At this point in time, the project will effectively be turned over to the Permanent Building Committee, where they will carry forward the next phase of the project. For everybody's edification, this is expected to take several months. We do expect to have several opportunities for folks to have input in terms of what the building will look like. I made that point last night. We intend to stick by that. And also, secondly and foremost, the process of establishing a central building maintenance function will be carried forward in the fiscal 2016 budget. So I want to make emphasize those points strongly, because I think that was heard loud and clear last night based on the input from the public. So that is it for the town hall update that I have, or the working group update that I have for you this evening. We're moving on to the next phase.
Congratulations again.
Thank you. In terms of the town manager update, I just have a couple items for you that I think it's important for you to weigh in on. First is I want to report to the board that A.J. Dooley, who, as you know, is a local trash and recycling collector for the town of Foxborough, he has approached me with a proposal to assume the existing trash and recycling contract that the town has with the Russell Disposal, who is based out of Somerville, Mass. For the board's understanding, trash and recycling contracts are exempt from the provisions of Mass General Laws, Chapter 30B, which is the state's purchasing guidelines. As such, it is within the town's authority to negotiate directly with a contractor to provide this service. Mr. Dooley has indicated that it is his desire to take over the contract starting on or around the first of the year, January 1st, 2015. The current contract with Russell expires on June 30th, 2015, but also contains 2 option years that Mr. Dooley would like to exercise if he assumes the remaining portion of the current Russell contract. If it is the board's desire to proceed in this direction, I will schedule a meeting with Mr. Dooley to further develop the terms of the transfer of the contract. And essentially, I think most people realize that that Mr. Dooley now has the majority of the community under his control, and that Russell is now operating and has been operating, I believe, at a loss for quite some time now. Obviously, he has an interest in sort of moving on and then transferring those that remaining work over to Mr. Dooley's control. There are several concerns, of course, with that, which Mr. Dooley has expressed an interest in addressing. One is that there are certain ways that people have their trash collected now, which is consistent with how Russell offers it. And he has agreed to adopt that same approach, so which is really important for folks to understand that. So the second piece of that is that he's also interested in introducing single-stream recycling, which I think is very important. That will certainly help reduce the overall trash stream into the waste stream. And it also, it also encourages more people to recycle. So I think those are all positive outcomes of that discussion. Certainly, there's a lot of further discussion has to be held. We've been working on trying to develop some guidelines, Board of Health guidelines, as well as town guidelines, as to how we manage the trash program. This contract going forward, from my perspective, is important because we want to make sure we have ongoing trash collection for our town facilities. Aside from that, we're really essentially out of the business. It will be something that will be controlled through the powers of the commercial process, where Mr. Dooley would effectively be offering this service to the majority of the residents in the community. Residents would still be free to select their collector from someone else. But as I understand right now, there are only a couple of people that offer that current service. So that is the change that's been proposed. I wanted to make sure that before I proceeded any further, that the board was fully aware of what has transpired. Time is of essence here because the reason why Mr. Dooley wants to start collecting as of July 1st, or January 1st rather, is because that's the next cycle for collection of payments. And he doesn't want to create a confusion with the public by having 2 bills going out at the same time. So I understand that point as well.
The question is the purpose of the contract primarily to secure a vendor for our town-generated trash?
That's correct.
Okay. Otherwise, Mr. Dooley has operated successfully without a contract.
That's correct. But right now, you have a contract with Russell Disposal, and that contract expires on June 30th. But it also provides a 2-year extension beyond that. Mm-hmm. So, which would mean that we would essentially he would assume all the responsibilities of that contract and anything that goes with that. But by and large, the majority of the responsibility is to the private residents. So we don't essentially make any payments to Mr. Dooley on that behalf.
Correct, but for the privilege of securing those customers in town, he's asked and he does collect the town's trash.
That's correct.
The municipal trash.
That's correct.
Sorry, okay.
The municipal sites.
Bill, some of the contractual requirements that were in place with the other vendor.
Russell Disposal.
Yeah. Understanding that those were not applicable to Mr. Dooley because he was operating outside of a contract, are those same types of safety requirements that, or, you know, those levels of requirements, will those be carried over to
Those same
an
terms and
agreement with them?
conditions would be effectively carried forward because
Okay.
as what's being asked by Mr. Dooley as a contractor is the ability to assume the existing contract.
Mm-hmm.
And so there may be terms in there that are difficult for him to meet, but the majority of those terms would be something that he would have to live up to.
Okay.
And in that contract, it sets the standards of operations.
That's right.
Mm-hmm.
Great, okay.
So I'm aware, I just want to make sure that before I proceed in that direction, that there is support from the board to do that. So I just want to...
I have no issue.
Yeah, I mean, I'm in full support. I think it's...
I'm not asking for an action, I just want to know,
No,
I just want to get,
but
I just
as far
want to
as-
be...
as far as giving some direction, I think there's
Yes.
support.
Okay, and I also want to be upfront with the public that this is transpiring behind, you know, essentially it's been proposed to me by Mr. Dooley himself.
Mm-hmm.
So I want everybody, the public, to be aware of this as well.
Okay.
That this has been transpiring. Okay.
Great. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Bill,
yeah, go ahead.
you're probably going to cover the next item.
Okay. The next item is dealing with the town council review process.
Right, okay, thanks.
The board recalled at your last meeting that I would further discuss this review process with this evening. I have provided the board with a rating sheet for proposals, but I wanted to know how you would like to proceed from here. If the board wants to evaluate each proposal, we can set a deadline. The total scores from each board member can then be sent to me, and I'll provide you with a list of final cumulative scores at your next scheduled board meeting. The board can then decide how many of the firms that you would like to interview. My suggestion is that you start interviews with the candidates in January, so a decision can be made by the end of the month. It has been reflected in the RFP that it was the goal of the board to give the new town council, to have the new town council assume office on or around March 1st of 2015. That date will largely determine how efficiently this process is able to proceed from here. Clearly, there will be a transition period, and our current firm, Gelman and Cabral, have given their commitment to provide no gap in coverage between now and then, and they will work cooperatively with whoever is chosen as a final firm. At this juncture, if the process seems acceptable, then I would ask the board to set a final date when all the rating sheets will be submitted to my office for consideration. And then we'll do the math and then come up with a final calculation by everyone.
Bill, I looked at that grading sheet, and I went through sort of a first blush with all the proposals this weekend, and I'm not sure that grading sheet captured really the key, I don't know, attributes of the firms that we're looking for.
Okay.
And I'm not sure if that could be reworked or not, but...
well, it can be, because, again, that's another one of those...
and actually, I'm not even sure that a scoring system is the appropriate way to go. I mean, some of them I went through, and some of them obviously are much lesser experienced than others. I think they can be discounted pretty quickly. What I'd like to do is to, hopefully, maybe in the next meeting, is to discuss all the proposals and narrow it down to a working three. Okay. And then perhaps in early January begin interviews. I'm wondering if that's a process that could work for us.
This is clearly the board's jurisdiction, and again, this is not one of those purchases that's under 30B. Yeah. It's clearly within your jurisdiction to set the goal, set the process.
Ginny, would you like to comment? No, I'll wait for me. Okay, so I'm just not sure that I'll be able to get through all, I'm not going to, I know you picked Sunday night during the football game to read all these, but I think I would need a little bit more time than next Tuesday. So maybe at the next meeting after that, I'd be ready to.
When's that meeting? That
When's that next meeting? It would be right after.
December 9th is your next
December
meeting.
9th? Okay.
Yeah. Which does give you adequate time. I mean, don't forget that you have a pretty full schedule. I know I have a pretty full schedule too for the month of December. So right. It's we wouldn't be able to really look at this until January in terms of actual.
How much notice do you think we would need to give to? And I'm going to just throw the number three law firms to get prepared for a meeting with us.
I would say at least a week. We could
That
do
would be
it the
enough
most,
time?
yeah, that'd be
Okay,
fine.
so if we can get this sorted out on December 9th, I think that'll work out
Right.
fine.
We're working around schedules, of course, but that's what my thought.
And I think even, maybe not having to use the grid, but just going into it with that in mind, that you come up with your ranked choices,
Yeah, like I said, I was able to, sort of, these are possibles and these are definitely nots.
Well,
And that was pretty easy to sort that out.
That's a very good thought, is that if you have your own thoughts about which firm you like better than others, you can rank them yourselves.
Yep.
And then say, okay, this is where I came up with, and ultimately, we find that when you go through that process, there's usually 3 or 4 that rise to the top pretty
Right.
quickly. So I think that will likely occur in this case as well.
Fabulous, okay,
Yeah.
thanks.
And just, if I can add, perhaps we can talk about what the structure of the interviews look like, if you want us to prepare an interview script or whatever.
That would be helpful,
Yeah.
reserving the right to deviate from it, but yeah, that would be helpful to guide us.
Okay.
Thanks.
And also, should we send you questions that we would like asked?
I'd be
Or
happy to
should we
coordinate that.
leave that?
Yeah.
I know you'd have to ask the same
Right.
questions of
So we
every
could
firm.
Take your input, coordinate a script that we can use,
Okay.
and ask the same questions, level playing field for all the firms.
Sounds good.
Okay.
I think it's good to be consistent. It's not an absolute in this case, but, because there may be questions that come off of questions get asked.
Yeah, the follow-up
Right.
questions.
You may want to
follow-up
drill
statements,
down,
right,
yeah, on certain
That's what we
issues.
did for your interviews. We basically asked, but then there might have been like, you said something.
Well,
and
yeah,
we-
I need further clarification on certain points, that's right.
Yeah.
And then finally, just a couple points, actually. A little more detail on the flyover. The Gillette Stadium officials are requesting the media's assistance in advising residents that there will be a flyover of two F-15C fighter jets over the stadium prior to the kickoff of Sunday's Patriots-Lions game at 1 p.m. Fighter jets from the 104th Fighter Wing, 131st Fighter Squadron, will take off from Barnes Air National Guard Base in Westfield and fly over Gillette Stadium moments before kickoff as part of the Patriots' 2014 Salute to Service game. In addition to the flyover, the Kraft family and the Patriots have planned several game day activities in order to honor veterans and active duty members of the military. As part of the NFL Salute to Service campaign, the league will donate $100 for each point scored during its 32 designated Salute to Service games to its nonprofit military partners, the Pat Tillman Foundation, the USO, and the Wounded Warrior Project. So I just, that was information I just received earlier today, so just to provide that information for you, further details on that point. And then last but not least, we are pleased to say that we are going, that the RFP for the fire station, the old fire station, and the funeral home will be actually in the Central Register tomorrow.
Great.
So I'm going to be asking the board at the next meeting to clarify a few final details of that, but we hope to have that process well underway and then be looking towards something at the first of next year as to how we can proceed from there and see what kind of proposals that we get.
Great.
So I want to thank Sharon Wasson for that because she really took the lead on that project, and I want to thank her for following through on that and getting that done. I made a commitment from the very beginning that we would try and follow through in that process, and really she was very helpful in making that happen. So I want to make sure I thank her for that effort. Okay. Thank you.
Thanks, Bill.
All right, I think we're all set.
I will make a motion to adjourn.
I second it.
All those in favor? Aye. Good night, everyone.
Good
Thank
night.
you.